Welcome, everybody. Great show planned for tonight. Good to have you with us, folks. This is Google Plus Week. I'm Dan McDermott, your host. A quick update. It is, well, first, I'm sorry. Let me introduce our panel. We have, on the right here, we have Sheila Dubois in Salt Lake City, Utah. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
In Ireland from Google, we have Moritz Tolksdorf. Welcome, Moritz.
Good evening, Dan.
Any views expressed by Moritz are definitely not those of Google. We have joining us from China, we have Mr. Michael Ellis. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Dan.
Kadeas Kalut joins us from Newport Beach, California. Welcome, Kadeas.
What's up, everybody?
Harold Carey in Idaho.
Hello, all.
My other co-host, along with Pam, will hopefully be here later. And Kadeas is Alan Furstenberg in New York. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, Dan.
And our guest of honor is Mr. Chris Goodfellow in a beautiful beach where he was swimming. He's got a very busy life. He's just slammed, and he was swimming today when we did his first hangout on Google Plus. So I'll introduce you in just a moment. I did want to do a quick update. It's currently 8:30 a.m. in Perth, Australia. Yesterday, 5 out of 10 airplanes spotted what they believe may be debris from the missing airline in an area where the search is now being conducted. A Chinese ship is en route, should arrive to investigate that sometime today. We've heard over and over again this could be the day, but it looks like this may actually be the day. Our guest tonight is Chris Goodfellow. He is a retired Canadian businessman now living in Florida. He flew his own high-performance twin-engine planes between Montreal, Toronto, Boston, and New York on a weekly basis in the 1970s and 1980s. Oops. The beauty of using a Nexus 7 for a Q. He's a graduate of McGill University, holds an MBA from Cornell University. He served a 3-year term from 2006 to 2009 as director of CIRA, the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, the governing body of the .ca domain in Canada. On March 14th, Chris Goodfellow posted a theory about the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. That post exploded on social media, getting over 2,500 shares alone here on Google+. It was picked up by Wired, then discussed on every major television and cable news network in this country and many others. Mr. Goodfellow has turned down interview requests from ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, Al Jazeera, and this one's weird, ESPN. However, tonight he will answer your questions from Google Plus and YouTube Live, and this is his first on-camera appearance on a U.S.-based program since the tragic disappearance of that apparently doomed Boeing 777. Mr. Chris Goodfellow, welcome to Google Plus Week, sir.
Dan. Hi. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So I've got a few questions I want to ask, and then I want to turn it over to the panel, and folks watching, you can comment on, I guess they can comment on the event? We've
Certainly.
decided?
Correct. That's correct. They can comment on the event, or they can also comment on YouTube Live. Either way, we'll see your comments or any post out there that you've seen about this event.
Okay, cool. So my first question, Chris, is what prompted you to post this in the first place? In a discussion earlier today, you said basically it was more of a rant than a post.
Well, it was a conservative rant, let's put it that way. I'd been watching the media for 7 days promoting this story, and it was clear to me that it was taking a direction that I felt was not appropriate under the circumstances. I particularly took note of the pilots being attacked, and with absolutely no factual evidence, and the promotion of the hijack and terrorism theories with no actual evidence, concrete evidence. The Prime Minister of Malaysia had even been drawn into the hijack theory. And this theory of the 777 being weaponized up in the Middle East resulted in Israel going on high alert. And I felt this was all really overblown, overdone, and perhaps this was just an accident. So I wrote the post.
Okay, so did you have any idea that this would explode and go viral as it did?
Dan, I had no idea at all. I mean, I thought maybe a few people might read it. And I think it got picked up initially. Maybe James Fallows at The Atlantic wrote something, and then it got picked up. Wired called me and said they'd like to run it. And from then on, it just took off. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Why did you choose Google Plus as the venue?
Well, that's an interesting question, Dan. I have a Facebook account and I have a Google Plus account, but I've been posting, I really haven't posted much actually in social media. I've been posting mostly my photographs that I enjoy taking here in Florida on Google Plus, and I just decided late that evening on the 14th to make the posting on Google Plus, I guess.
Did you, you said you were pleasantly surprised at the quality of comments you've gotten online. Will you talk about that and contrast that with the reaction you got from some folks in the mainstream media, particularly Slate, which kind of did a takedown of your theory?
Well, I think that 90% of the comments, and I think there's been well over 1,000 comments in the Google Plus postings, the original posting and subsequent postings. I would say 90% of them are positive and constructive comments of people interested in the story, like-minded, intelligent people who want to find the answers, the correct answers to this riddle. Of course, there have been trolls. There have been some pilots who've taken me to task. But I want to point out that my motivation originally in this was to defend pilots. I felt that the media was, and in many of these aircraft accident reports that are sensationalized these days on the mainstream media, they immediately attack the pilots. And I think all that kind of investigation of the pilots can be done in the background, and it's not necessary nor appropriate for the media to immediately go after the pilots.
I have to say, you know, when I read your post, or I think I might have read the Wired article, when they reposted it, it seemed very obvious to me that you were saying that the lead pilot seemed very clearly to have had a cool head, to have made rational decisions, and to be doing things exactly the way that you would have done them as a pilot. We talked, you know, we mentioned in the introduction a little bit about how you were doing piloting in the 70s and 80s. How do you think piloting has changed since then, either for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, Alan, when I wrote the article, I approached it as the problem as I saw it as a pilot. Okay, I didn't approach it with a negative input initially, thinking that it was a hijacking. I just looked at two things. I looked at the fact that communication had ceased suddenly from the transponder 2 minutes after the co-pilot had indicated that everything was all right in the cockpit. He said good night, and they were going to turn over to Ho Chi Minh City from one ATC to the other. His good night indicated to me everything was fine up front. 2 minutes later, all communication ceases. That's a fact. That's one fact I assume. The next fact I assumed was the turn back to the mainland, which clearly to me, any pilot in distress would commence right away, turn back towards the closest airport of Safe Harbor. And I brought up Google Earth, which is a great tool. I've used it for all sorts of things over the past few years. And I determined that the airport that I suggested, Langkawi, was the best airport to turn to. It had a 13,000-foot runway with a clear approach over water. There were other closer airports, but remember, this is a big, heavy aircraft full of fuel, and he was at 35,000 feet. He had to get down in time to make an approach. And I wouldn't want to make an approach with a 777. Although I never flown one, I can't imagine going into a 6,000-foot runway at night with an aircraft in distress.
Okay, let me ask one short question, and then let's
Yep.
actually get your current version of the theory, because I know you've had a whole lot of new information that's come out. And this goes to Robert Reddle's question here. How do you turn down a mainstream media request? I'd be interested in the wording. So my question is, along with that, we're flattered you came on our program. This is kind of where your post started those, and you knew, it would be Google Plus folks. But why did you turn down? I mean, literally, like on CNN, they had the guy from Slate who was there specifically to say why your article was completely wrong, and you didn't want to engage in that. You don't look like a shy person to me. So what was your thinking?
I'm not shy at all, and I'm not afraid to engage Jeff Wise at any time. But I'm not going to engage with him in a soundbite contest. I would far prefer the venue to be something like this, a rational discussion at length of why I wrote what I wrote. I'm no expert. I just looked at it and I said, this is what happened from my point of view. He turned back to the mainland. He picked up a heading towards that airport. They were probably overcome. The evidence to me, the subsequent evidence that I didn't know that night, further confirms my belief that they were overcome. And this aircraft flew on towards the southeast to the point where it either ran out of fuel or it was rendered incapable of flying because of damage that it had.
I got one other really quick question before I ask you for the current theory. At any from where they did the turn left until where it's now expected that they've crashed off Perth. At any point there, if you're wrong and if they were not all incapacitated, was there any point during there where someone could have gotten a text or cell phone message out? Or were they like straight up over the ocean and there were no cell towers that whole journey? Do we know that?
I don't know. I can't speculate on that. I mean, it clearly flew back over the Malaysian mainland. According to Malaysian radar, that's an assumption that's being made, and it is being, I would not say definitively confirmed by the Inmarsat data, that the aircraft flew towards the southwest. It's pretty certain, I would say, that it did, but it's not 100%. Remember that. I keep an open mind.
So what is your current version of your theory? How has it changed? Let's get that out, and then we can all shoot questions, you guys, and the viewers.
Yeah, well, I don't think my theory's changed at all. I think that there was an overwhelming event that took place on the aircraft, whether it was in the cockpit or in the hold, and the aircraft was directed towards the mainland. The pilots were overcome, and this essentially became a ghost aircraft in much the same manner as Payne Stewart. The information, the subsequent information, and I find it extraordinary that this aircraft was carrying 200 kilos. I read somewhere that it had 800 kilos, but even 200 kilos of lithium-ion batteries. This, to me, is very relevant, along with the eyewitness testimony of Mike Mackay. This is an engineer. This is not just a oil rig worker out on the South Vietnamese coast. He's an engineer, and he gave a very specific report to his office, including the heading on which he saw. the flash, and the flash lasted 10 to 15 seconds. To me, that might be indicative, lends me to think it might be indicative of the lithium-ion batteries. My original postulation was perhaps it was a nose gear fire, perhaps an electrical fire. I think it was a fire of some sort that incapacitated the crew. It would have had to be a fire. We've heard nothing further about hijack. We've had presumably even the FBI has done the run over of these pilots and come up with nothing. I can't imagine, as I've said before, this pilot and co-pilot. The co-pilot was going to get married in a couple of weeks. He was 27 years old. What a job he had. What a fantastic job ahead he had. And the pilot, 18,000 hours with a great career, and he had a great job too. The media speculated about his family. I found that distasteful, without any real facts. The wife evidently mentioned afterwards that he had that she used to go to the country house when he went on a trip. So, and his son has spoken since too about his father.
So one of the things that a lot of people, including Dan, have kind of questioned is the level of communication from the airplane in real time. You as a pilot, what are your thoughts on the need or desire or usefulness of a continuously pinging of an aircraft that's continuously transmitting something beyond what's currently being sent out?
Well, I think that, look, we all know FedEx and UPS have devices on their trucks where they know exactly where their truck is, what corner of the street the truck is on to call it to go make a pickup. I think this technology exists. It probably should be on all large commercial aircraft.
Well, I mean, isn't that essentially what modern aircraft transponders are, though? Is, they transmit that simple information. I think it sounds like
yes.
It's going to call for a lot more detailed information.
Actually, transponders do not transmit the GPS coordinates of an aircraft. The transponder is basically working with ground radar, and it transmits the aircraft identification and the aircraft altitude. It doesn't transmit its actual GPS location. So I think that another independent device that could be installed that would transmit the actual coordinates of the aircraft at all times, probably through satellite telephone, a satellite link, certainly would save a lot of time in a case like this.
Do you foresee them actually doing it based on what's happened with this case?
Well, I think really the call from the traveling public, here we have to consider that the traveling public is being put at great anxiety when these events occur. And I think all around the world today, I mean, this story, I have a quote here. This was a post. "This mystery is doing all our heads in. Almost every person on the planet is thinking about this every day. The families and friends must be beside themselves. This is truly a worldwide event which will result in the light being shone into dark places." Well, the interest in this story obviously is enormous. The shares of this of what I wrote, and I wrote what I wrote to try and shift the groupthink away from this concept of hijack terrorism towards looking for people. I thought there might be people in the water down there towards the southwest, frankly, and they were completely ignoring this, and so Yeah, I think that the traveling public, people should stand up and scream and say, if it takes us this amount of resources over this period of time, 3 weeks, and we come up with nothing, surely, the technology is there, and it could be put on aircraft.
I want to shift away a little bit from the incident and the theories itself. You mentioned earlier that you've got both Facebook and a Google Plus account. What brought you to Google Plus initially?
Well, that's a very long story. I've been around the internet
We should caution you. We're on the air for an extremely long period of time, so we're really good with long stories.
Okay. Long story made short. I've been around the internet since the beginning, and I actually purchased many domains at the onset of the internet. And believe it or not, Google actually runs email for a number of those domains for me. And so I've known your services right from the beginning, and Google Plus, though, is new to me. I mean, I only started using it after I moved to Florida permanently last year, and I wanted to, as I said, post my photographs for friends and family, and some for the public.
Now, in your bio, it mentioned you ran the .ca domain. Can you?
No, I didn't run it. I was a director.
The director of it. I apologize.
A director amongst 9 directors on the board of directors. So I certainly didn't run it, but I sat there at the board level and oversaw the running of this .ca domain. Which
how did you get involved in that? Because I mean, in the bio that we have from you, you were a pilot and you were on the board of directors. That's quite a jump.
No, I was a businessman. I've been a businessman all my life. The piloting was part of the fun of being in business, and the .ca thing came up when I took an opportunity to run. It's an elected position, and I took an opportunity to run and represent the province of Quebec on the board.
So what other social platforms do you use besides Google Plus?
Well, I went into Starbucks the night before last and asked a young girl to teach me how to tweet.
Definitely not Twitter.
I opened a Twitter account, I think, a couple of years ago, but I'd never used it. The Facebook account, well, I really don't do much. I put some pictures on there. I frankly don't use a lot of social media. I think what this has taught me, this is an extraordinary thing to happen to somebody like myself who had no idea that going viral would result in my face being splashed across the Daily Mail in London, in India, in Australia, in every country in the world practically. Even you stole my picture off Google Plus. Anyway, it's an extraordinary event, but what it tells me something about the world today and the capability of these social networks to reach people, to empower all of us. I mean, I was tremendously empowered in a brief 0 to 60 in 0.1 seconds, faster than a Tesla even, that here I was empowered by this one small posting to participate in shifting the groupthink away from the mass media attention to hijacking etc.
It shows
And
you
I,
the democracy of the internet, the power. I mean, with all due respect, you were not a prominent Google Pluser, but you put this post out, and based on the quality of the content, it exploded. You didn't buy ads, or, you know what I mean? It was the most
that's
plausible theory any of us had heard, and based on the merit, purely the merits of the post and your experience, because you come from a voice of authority as a 20-year pilot. It's democracy in action, I think. That's the
Well,
power
I
of
don't know
this.
whether I'm a heavy voice of authority, as some pilots have pointed out to me, but I did my share of flying. I've got 3,000 hours under my belt in all weather conditions, and unlike a lot of the pilots today, I learned at a time when, just a magnetic compass and a watch, you had to learn navigation. And today, much of it is automated and different.
That's a
But
dig I've heard. Is that a fair dig that the newer pilots, because they didn't go through, sort of like, they didn't
yes,
learn how to
I
grind a
think
stick shift, they just learned an auto, you know what I mean?
I won't say it's a fair dig. I'm not making a dig. I think the pilots are better trained today than ever. But I think one of the issues, and it was represented in the Air France crash, was that the reliance on all these very automated systems and devices sometimes misleads the pilot into thinking that the aircraft is doing something that it isn't doing, or he's inputting the wrong maneuvers. Maybe too much confusing information. Remember, Lindbergh flew the Atlantic with a magnetic compass. He understood magnetic deviation and winds, and pretty good. He left Newfoundland and hit Ireland. A lot of pilots today, they punch in coordinates and waypoints. If all those structures around them are removed, that's when their mettle will be tested.
Okay,
So,
I'm going to go to Harold in just a second. First, let's get a comment from Cadeas.
Joe Moran wants to know, why do you think it took Malaysia so long to give out the vital info to the public?
Yeah, well, I think we're all wondering that. But, when it finally dribbled out what the cargo was, I think that they probably, right at the beginning, they were stumbling how they were going to divulge this information. The cargo was clearly, as they said, packaged in accordance with ICAO standards or whatever. But it's my understanding, some professional pilots reported in the comments to me that only lithium batteries should only be carried on cargo aircraft, and only 35 kilos. This cargo was a large cargo, larger than that. It could have shifted in takeoff, something could have happened. They didn't want to divulge it. The radar data, incidentally, from the military, that came out 2 days afterwards, 2 days after the event. I have postulated that perhaps the personnel manning the radars were asleep. There's no wars going on in the area there, and I'm sure the radars were humming and alive and recording on tape probably, because nobody scrambled any jets. If they had seen this turn, this deviation from a normal flight course, and the Malaysian Air Force was looking at this, their first thought would be, there's an aircraft in trouble, or there's an aircraft that may be under a direction of somebody. And they got that big Petronas Towers down in Kuala Lumpur. So I would think the Malaysian Air Force would have jumped it pretty quick if they'd been awake.
We've got some really good questions. First, a compliment. Thomas Milne says, Chris, I'd like to thank you for putting a rational voice behind this event. Between CNN and aliens, we as people were moving in the wrong direction. I think at one point they discussed whether a black hole had sucked up the airplane. Richard Arkles says, we all know how unreliable the media is about events like these. What has been your method of collecting relevant and reliable information on which anyone can use and take advantage of?
Well, my method of collecting it has been all the input from all the fantastic and intelligent people who have posted comments on the Google Plus page that I have, and people who have sent me countless emails and personal messages, not only providing technical information, but telling me about the families involved and the concerns for the families. Very touching, very touching.
We take pride here at Google Plus in the quality of our user base. Robert Reddle asks, automation. If in a well-equipped plane the pilots cannot act anymore, would Boeing or someone else be able to engage the autopilot from outland or from outside? Is taking it down the only option? This gets to the obvious thing in my mind is we have completely autonomous drones that can take off, fly over Pakistan, drop payload, and return and land without a person. The fear that immediately comes to mind about doing this with a airplane with hundreds of people on board is the fear of that plane being able to be hacked into by a nefarious person and take control with bad intentions. What are your thoughts on that? As a former pilot, would you be excited about or fearful or both of the ability, if you suddenly dropped from a heart attack or whatever, became incapacitated, the thought of someone in the control tower being able to literally take over your plane and land it?
Well, really, I can't speculate on that. I think that whether that technology exists, I mean, there were posts on comments on my pages that Raytheon had a contract with Boeing to develop completely autonomous auto-land systems to take over an aircraft in trouble, etc. I have no idea. Boeing's 747-8 captain, the latest 747, posted that he had no knowledge of such systems. But obviously, we know that just down the road here in Tampa, guys sit in bunkers and control those drones over the Middle East and can land them at airports in Afghanistan from Tampa. So, yeah, it's certainly feasible, I'm sure. Would I like to be a passenger on a drone aircraft with no pilots in the future? I don't think so. I think the human element is always important, and sometimes the human element can pull the rabbit out of the hat in a tight spot.
Okay, I want to go to Harold in 1 second, but I will say that it's easy. I've looked, like if you actually look at the black box, it's easy to say, why on earth does the battery, why does a Kindle Paperwhite battery last longer than the black box? And then they say we have to go through rigorous testing before we put stuff in there. And if you actually look in one of these things, it looks like a computer case with about a dozen motherboards and all kinds of circuitry, and it's a serious thing. And so I imagine there is this arduous procedure before they introduce something new, and it's not done, it's done in FDA time where it takes years, I guess, unfortunately. Harold Carey, do you have any questions for Chris Goodfellow?
Yes, it's really, it's about the media and stuff. I'm just noticing here that we have him in, he's on India News, Sydney Morning News, New Zealand News, all over the world, and so every single news service is reporting. Do you respect any of these news services? And if you were to go anywhere other than Google Plus, is there a news service that you respect that you might talk to?
Yeah, I do actually. There are a lot of print reporters I've talked to, and given my story to. I did an interview with a reporter at Peter Edwards up at the Toronto Star, and he wrote a very balanced article. I've done voice interviews on Canadian television with the CTV network, And that interview is available. There's a link on my Google Plus page. That's a 12-minute interview. And I've done a couple of interviews with BBC and with Australian, Sydney, Australia radio station 2UE. These were people who contacted me, phoned me up, and I liked the way they approached it, and I respected it, and gave them the interviews. Just the way you approach me, Dan, because I know this all started on Google Plus, and there was a tremendous interest of people on Google Plus about how did this happen? You know, how did it go viral? I had nothing to do with it going viral. It was really, I don't know what gave it the credibility. Maybe some of the people out there, some of the viewers tonight, can tell me what gave it the credibility. Why did you share it? Why did Facebook shares on the Wired article there almost 500,000? I mean, it's. I don't think there's been a Wired article that's ever had that many shares. I don't know.
I think it was because it was plausible. You know, we'd heard all these conspiracy theories. We've heard, but there's no. I mean, like they say, they're absolutely convinced that one of the people in the cockpit did something nefarious, but there's zero evidence of that. If they get the voice data recorder, if they get the flight data recorder, maybe they can come to such a conclusion. But your theory was the only one I read that seemed to me, well, this makes sense. You know, often the simplest solution is the correct one, that there was some sort of traumatic sudden event, smoke, whatever. They had very brief time. That you said that a good pilot will, and he was a 30-year pilot, I think, with like what 18,000 hours or something, a lot.
That's correct.
And you said that when they're doing this, they're always cognizant, if all hell breaks loose, what's the nearest place, and you update that throughout the trip. That would explain why he had programmed things in, if that's the case. But it was so much speculation from these Malaysian authorities that were so slow to and so quick to make broad proclamations that without any evidence. You came along and said, wait a minute, you know, I've been there. We are trying and convicting these pilots in the media, and here's a plausible theory, and it seemed to make sense. And it was the first plausible thing I'd seen that made complete sense. I didn't,
Yeah, but
you know, it wasn't.
I want to catch you there, Dan. I want to catch you there, Dan, because my motivation in writing this was twofold. One was I was fed up with the hijack thing, with the knocking the pilots, but I also had some concerns that they weren't looking in the right place, and the right place was southwest, and there might be people in the water. Let me tell you, I think that if, and I haven't done this, nor have I ever spoken to anybody in Canadian Search and Rescue, but if you called up Canadian Search and Rescue in Trenton, Ontario, they'd tell you that the first thing they would do was, if the last information they had was the heading of the aircraft, in other words, the direction that it was proceeding on, they would load up a long-range reconnaissance aircraft and they would fly that heading out to the known point of fuel exhaustion on day one. And that's what should have been done. In this case, if the Malaysian military radar, the first issue of the Malaysian military radar, incidentally, was different from the one issued again 3 days afterwards. The first issue showed the heading I estimated, according to the drawings, because there was no heading on it. It was southwesterly. I estimated about 235 degrees. I believe an aircraft should have been sent out on that heading, then the very next day to have a look.
Now we know that there's the new area. Do we know if that and apparently 5 out of 10 planes, first the satellite saw stuff, and then 5 out of planes looked down and said, you know, we think we see debris from whatever distance an airplane sees stuff, and they.
Okay, you got to remember.
Does that jive with if that's accurate? Does that jive with your direction that you thought? Or you
Yeah,
supposed?
well, what you got to remember is where they're looking now, okay, where they're looking for debris now is not where the aircraft
True. Yeah, it's been a couple
crashed
weeks.
or went in. It's 3 weeks later, and their best drift analysis guys, their best guys in terms of drift and wind analysis are working on this and theorizing, just like everybody is theorizing, where the debris might be. But I tend to think I'm an optimistic person. I'm a very optimistic and positive person. But we're 3 weeks in now. We all have seen the sea states down in that area, the rough seas, the storms going through. I think it's very unlikely large pieces of wreckage are probably still on the surface. I think that's very disheartening. I think every day that it goes on, the likelihood of finding large pieces of the aircraft decline. Of course, light material, floatable material, whether they're life jackets, life rafts that spontaneously inflate, etc., seats that can float for a long time, that kind of material perhaps is still afloat.
So the big pieces, the wings, the sides are so heavy that eventually the water would seep in, and especially in a storm, and they'd sink down. So then it would be a long-term salvage operation to look at where you found debris finally, where your best guess is of where it went down, and then kind of do a circle and submarines or whatever, or that thing that they float under.
Dan, I feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation here, and you have other experts there. But let me just say this: that the debris field now, even the large piece debris field, I feel could extend over 1,000 miles. I mean, if you're talking about a 2-knot current over a period of 21 days, or you're easily talking about 1,000 miles. So this is speculation, of course, on my part, but I think that we all know how a river moves, and this is moving. This is moving debris, so that the main hull will lie at the origin of the crash, and that's where probably the black box is. Not certain, because the black box is located in the tail of the aircraft, and the tail of the aircraft could move some distance as well. But the larger pieces that broke off and may have floated initially, those could be strewn over a very large area as well.
Michael Ellis, did you have any questions or comments for Chris Goodfellow?
I actually had two. One that you just raised for me, Chris. The first question is about the debris field. What I had seen this morning, and admittedly from less than credible news sources, CNN, was that the debris that they're looking at right now from satellite and approaching with aircraft is in an area of the ocean that it has a large circular calm area. And so they're thinking that in that specific area, which might be quite broad, the debris may not have moved very far. Does that seem likely to you, or are they talking about just some debris that happens to be trash that's swirling out in the ocean because that's the way the currents normally go?
Well, as I understand it, there is a gyre in that area, an area of accumulation of debris where the currents circulate around. Now, if by chance this aircraft were to land exactly in the middle of this gyre, then the debris could be held in a relatively tight area. I don't know how tight an area, frankly, because I'm not an expert in the currents of the ocean in that area. I wouldn't even speculate. But according to people I've talked to, there is a hell of a lot of debris in that area. And everything from garbage to containers and the original pallet that was seen at one point, wooden pallets, all these things can be in that area.
Great. And then my second question is related to an earlier part of the conversation, I guess. Your post was about the likelihood of some event that caused them to be overcome. Do you have any information or anything that leads you to think that the event was in some way an attack, or in anything that supports the idea that the pilots were overcome by someone else on the plane?
No, I don't. Here I'm surmising as well, because really, I think that if this was a hijack, okay, if somebody got into the cockpit and put a gun to the heads of the pilot and said, "Fly me somewhere," I don't think they would have turned back to the Malaysian mainland. I think the destination might have been north, east, maybe further west, maybe up into Burma. Who knows if this was if these were hijackers? But do you think that the hijackers, the first thing they do, they turn back to Malaysia and want to encounter the Air Force, perhaps, if the Air Force were up and awake? So I think that this was an event on board the aircraft, and it was just an overwhelming event. And the source of that event will remain a mystery until we find the debris and find the black boxes, I guess. Whether it was an explosion of the lithium batteries, whether it was something else in the cockpit that went off, perhaps even as little as a spare battery. I understand one person wrote that in Asia they have larger capacity spare lithium-ion batteries than we have in the States, and something like 25,000 milliamps. And these have been known to go off. Could that incapacitate pilots? I don't know. Could that have triggered something else that other pilots have written on my posts? A problem with the oxygen masks. There have been previous fires. One noted one was an Egyptian airplane that burned on the tarmac when the oxygen supply to the oxygen mask for the pilots, somehow there was a electrical discharge, a spark that ignited the oxygen, and a fire started. That wasn't fatal. They got the people off at the ramp. So that's to answer it.
Okay. I'm not sure if Moritz is around. Sheila, did you have any questions or comments for Chris?
Yeah, just, I might break off from the airplane thing, but, my husband we have been discussing the same thing, and he's heard a story where what you discussed was the most logical thing, like a fire. That's about the only thing that we could think of that would make more sense. No hijacking, because if there was a hijack, people would know. They would have known. So I applaud you, and I read your post, and so I'm tending to side with you.
Well, thank you, but I remain, and I've said this all along. I have an open mind. I will not condemn the pilots. I will not assume they're guilty before any proof comes to the point that they're guilty. The murder-suicide thing, this was promoted, I think the gentleman who wrote for Slate even talked about the murder-suicide thing. I mean, until there was definitive evidence leading in that direction, I wouldn't assume anything. I mean, many things could have caused the pilots to become incapacitated besides a fire.
Right.
It could have been an explosive decompression of the aircraft, not caused by the lithium batteries igniting. It could be something totally different. But an explosive decompression at 35,000 feet in the cockpit, listen, they're not going to have time to start communicating on the radio.
Right.
The whole
I mean,
hijacking thing doesn't make sense. The hijacking thing doesn't make sense. If he would have had to kill the other guy, whoever did it in the cockpit, and then you're saying that for hours and hours there would not be any kind of revolt from the crew. They just went straight. No credible group has claimed responsibility. What's the point in hijacking something and then being quiet about it? You're not terrorizing anybody. And why wouldn't they have crashed it into a whatever the Twin Towers is? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, Dan, you see, we're getting into this area of discussing the hijacking. I don't even want to get into this area. I think let's get into something here. Where do we go from here?
Find the box.
We're 21 days into this. We're spending a huge amount of resources in an attempt to find some debris. And, I mean, I believe we need to solve this riddle. It's an important question to solve it because there still could be a problem with the aircraft. There could be another person on board that aircraft that caused this problem. We don't know. These are the answers. We must have answers to aircraft accidents of this magnitude. And so that's, we have to go forward with the assumptions that we have and explore all avenues. But I think in a factual, taking the facts into account and not speculate. The speculation drives me nuts, frankly.
Well, Craig Ship has a question about future, preventing these in the future. Something that flight.
Moving forward,
go ahead.
Why, in this day and age, why don't they have some sort of a GPS unit that's weather sealed that detaches from the plane at about, let's say, 200 feet above the ground, and then will float and give off a signal, and then people at least know close to where the plane crashed? It doesn't seem like that would be that hard to rig something like that up, a little trap door underneath the plane somewhere where this thing detaches and goes down and floats and gives a signal, and we know where the plane is.
Yeah, we discussed that earlier on. Perhaps you weren't online, but that's perfectly doable. I think as I said, the FedEx trucks and the UPS trucks, they know where those trucks are 24 hours a day. We should have a separate device on aircraft transmitting the data of the position of the aircraft in terms of latitude and longitude at all times, independent of radar tracking. That would give the first place to look. The other thing interesting in this crash, is that the ELT did not go off. The ELT is another device, the emergency locator transmitter, which is located in the tail, and when an aircraft crashes above certain G-forces, the ELT is triggered. That sends a signal to the satellites of the position. They're able to triangulate a position. In this case, the ELT did not go off. And one could speculate perhaps that the ELT was not correctly functioning. Maybe the batteries weren't maintained. There's a lot of questions. Malaysia Air has a lot of questions to answer. The complete maintenance records of this aircraft will be gone over tooth and nail by Boeing, by the FAA, and by the Malaysian authorities, I'm sure. and will, in due time, will get answers. But it's a shame that there was no ELT transmission from this aircraft.
And even along those lines, Craig, a simpler solution would be like what Chris is talking about, that UPS and FedEx trucks, every major rental car company has on their cars, to keep, so they can, sometimes they'll bill you extra if you were speeding. The detachable GPS thing is out there. That's in fighter jets now. But even if they just had it constantly transmitting the GPS, and then they would know when it went off, when it stopped functioning, they'd know that was where. There are plenty of ways to do this that are existing technology. There's a comment I think Cadeas has up.
Looks like Joe has two questions here. I guess the first one is he wants to know, do you think that the blog searched the way they're searching for the plane now, basically because of what you wrote? And then he also wants to know what type of air. Is it just normal air, or is it O2 that's usually in the face mask?
Oh no, let's answer the second question first.
Okay.
The face mask is pure oxygen. They're fed pure oxygen. And the first question: do I think did my post change where they were searching? I think that what happened was that I posted something. Perhaps it was well written. I'll take credit for that. Okay, that I can write a good rant. So it was given credibility by other people, not by me, and that spread. Did that and other people's pushing force the authorities then to consider shifting their focus from the hijack theory, the murder-suicide theory, looking in the South China Sea, looking in the Straits of Malacca, to then looking deeper to the southwest? And that's what I was saying. And yes, I think that groupthink got shifted a bit, and people then organized to start looking down deep to the southwest, because the information came out, and it didn't come out initially, remember, of the Inmarsat pings. That information I didn't even have when I wrote the blog. So I wasn't aware that the aircraft actually had motored on for 6 hours. I just speculated the aircraft had motored on that heading until fuel exhaustion, or until it was incapable of flying anymore because of the damage. But once the Inmarsat pings were analyzed and that data came out, remember they said it's either northeast up into Afghanistan, Tajikistan, or it's down to the southwest. And the first thing that got jumped on again was it was up there in the north, being weaponized. Folks, this, I think, was an accident. I think it's becoming increasingly clear. Nobody stepped forward to say they hijacked the plane. It's increasingly clear that the police authorities, the FBI, I believe, that said they found nothing in the pilot's hard drives to indicate anything. This was an accident. Maybe it's just a testament to the Boeing Aircraft Company, incidentally. I mean, they do make fantastically reliable aircraft. And if indeed everybody was incapacitated and this flew on for 6.5 hours, you got to compliment the engineers who designed these aircraft. This is a very stable aircraft. Aircraft, incidentally, for those people who don't know, aircraft are designed to be inherently stable. Actually, when you put an aircraft in an attitude, it remains in that attitude. And really, if the aircraft, the best thing you can do when an aircraft becomes uncontrollable to you is perhaps to release the controls, and the aircraft then will recover itself. Aircraft are designed that way to be stable. Okay, so we have another one.
Thomas wants to know, what do you think consumers should do going forward with stuff like this? So basically, should we choose our airline companies more wise, or what do you think?
Well, that's a very difficult thing for me to answer. I think that most American flag carriers, we do have the FAA, we do have government agencies which are monitoring the operation of all domestic airlines here in the United States, and international airlines that fly into the United States, that are given permission to fly into the United States, have to meet certain requirements. Flying, I think, is frankly very safe. Statistically, it's much safer than me going out onto 95 here and driving down to Miami from where I live. And that leads me to another point I want to make, and that is this whole business of the anxiety society, as I call it, that hyping these disasters the way they do really puts people on edge, on further edge. And, living in Florida here, Florida depends on tourism. We want people to get on airplanes and come down here and enjoy the sun. And, it's unnecessarily promoting the terrorism, promoting the hijack thing, when there's no evidence, is bad for airlines. It's bad for airline travel.
What they're trying to do is fill time. I'll go to Craig in one sec. But they're trying to fill time because there is a tremendous interest at this point because we don't know the cause. We've all flown, most of us, and it's the unknown. And we're like, we want to know, like, am I in danger the next time I get on an airplane? That's the interest. And then they got to...
Well spoken by media guy. What they're trying to do is keep viewers and keep listeners. They're a dying breed. Okay, they're circling the drain. And they're desperate for viewers, and they'll do anything. They'll hype anything. They'll lie. They'll say that a tornado went through and destroyed an entire neighborhood when it destroyed one house. I mean, they will exaggerate anything, any chance they get, and they'll do it 24/7, 365 for a week, and that's all I'll say on the subject.
Sheila, you had a question, you said?
Yeah, I do, and I'm laughing at Craig. Actually, time is of the essence for that black box, right?
Well, time is of the essence in the sense the battery's going to run out in
Right.
another 10 days. But the black box may well survive a great deal longer. I mean, it is designed to remain submerged for a very long time.
Yeah, that's one thing I heard on the browser today, which is connected to KSL TV. Radio. So that's what I wanted to discuss a little bit,
Yeah, well,
no.
It would be nice to get close to the black box so you could hear it, but that's a mighty big ocean out there, and they don't have a clue of the pinpoint where it is. They have to be literally almost on top of that to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
If this search goes on for a very long time and turns into a prolonged search like the Air France took 2 years, I guess it'll move to underwater mapping of the areas. But I mean, this is going to be a significantly bigger task, I think, than the Air France one. Remember, they found the debris in Air France 4 days afterwards. So they nailed the area in terms of drift much closer. This, I can't imagine. To me, right now, the triangle of where this aircraft could have gone down lies on a line from the Maldives all the way down to the closer to the coast of Australia. I mean, it's a huge triangle, and it could have gone anywhere in that area. I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know the winds aloft that night. And I don't know the magnetic variations there, but if it were set on a heading of 235 degrees and there were strong winds from the north, it was flying westerly, strong winds from the northeast. It could have turned the nose around more southerly. The projected NTSB tracks looked like they took into account the winds aloft, and I sort of like those tracks, and they lie quite westwards of the Inmarsat arcs. They lie several hundred miles westward. If you look on the maps, those NTSB tracks, and they've got two of them there, incidentally, probably saying that it lies between those points.
There was a report or speculation that they were getting, I guess it was Rolls-Royce or whoever, something, Intelsat, whatever, was getting the pings, but they didn't know exactly where they were coming from. And I heard somewhere that it was because they hadn't subscribed to that service. They had lapsed in their subscription. Is that accurate, or do we know that to be the, and what the hell if that's true?
I don't know. But Inmarsat, the company, has stepped forward. Incidentally, they stepped forward, I believe, on the 11th with the information that they had these pings for 6.5 hours. But Malaysia didn't talk about those until I think probably the 15th, the day after I posted. For 4 days, I don't think Malaysia let that information public. And then it was the North Arc and the South Arc, because Inmarsat up to that time had not determined where exactly, in what direction it had flown. And in fact, the operation to search in the Southwest commenced before Inmarsat definitively, if you could use that word, indicated that they thought the pings were definitely in the southwest quadrant, the southwest arc.
Do you find, is it fair to say that the Malaysians are either incompetent or covering something up, or is that unfair, or some mixture of the two? Because I'm trying to find a third explanation for their behavior, and maybe I'm missing something.
Well, Dan, this is interesting. I had a conversation. I'm somebody who has quite an international background. I've done a fair amount of travel, and I've mixed with all different cultures. And, there's the Asian culture, the aspect of saving face is terribly important. And, this can fit into the cultural sort of approach to all of this. This is overwhelming for the Malaysians. They don't have a playbook like we do in the United States. I mean, when an aircraft goes down here, there's a definite playbook for the NTSB and for everybody in terms of the release of information and handling the media. I think the Malaysians were caught completely off guard by all of this. The approach to it obviously has been bungled. I mean, it's been terribly bungled, because the fact that it had this cargo of lithium-ion batteries should have been disclosed again on the first day, because this probably would have directed people's attention to the fact of the sighting by Mike McKay of this short burst of light or fire, and it might have lent more credibility to go and do a search down there along the heading towards the southwest.
And I don't know what their history is, but I'm looking here. There was a comment before: should we be more cautious about what airlines we use? I don't know how many Malaysian airlines have crashed, but the fact that they don't have a playbook tells you that it's not like every third plane goes down in Malaysia, right?
No, I think they've
And
had,
this
I
is,
think
should
they've
not
had
be
a
an
couple of
indictment of the
crashes.
airline's pilots as a whole or anything like that, or the planes.
Yeah, I think they haven't had many crashes. They had a 737 in I think 1977 that went down outside Kuala Lumpur, which was a hijack, and the pilots were shot and the plane went into the ground. The other one was a crash, I believe, going into some airport, some more remote airport. It was not a jet. It was a turboprop that went down in bad weather, I think. So they don't have a terrible accident record, but the very fact that they were carrying this cargo, tells you, is an indicator that perhaps their approach to managing things, cargo and stuff, is not as judicious as it should be. I got to tell you, I'm still open on the pilot on this issue of the cargo, because the pilot's in command of the aircraft, and he should know what cargo he's carrying. Was he advised correctly of the cargo? I'd love to know that from the Malaysians. I'd love to know if the manifest indicated that there's, you have 200 kilos of lithium-ion batteries on board, Mr. Captain. You have the right to reject this cargo. Or was it just the cargo department doing its job, trying to move as much material and for revenue as possible?
Do we know, were these iPhone batteries or destined for 787s? I mean, were these little, or for cars, or do we know?
Nobody has answered that question to me. I have no idea what they are. I think they were some form of laptop battery, that's what people tell me. But I don't know the power of them. I don't know the handling. I don't know how they were packaged. I asked the Christian Science Monitor reporter, Peter Ford, to do some digging on this a week ago. I thought that he's in Kuala Lumpur. I thought he might be able to shed some light on how these were handled. I asked, I suggested to him that there might be tapes at the airport in Kuala Lumpur of the ground activity around that aircraft. All of these things. Everybody who approaches the aircraft on a tarmac is being videotaped today, I believe. So was the loading of these batteries there on tape? Was there anything unusual that took place during the loading of these batteries? Did a box fall off the trolley and, the guy then put it back on the trolley? Was there something like that? All of these things, I'm sure that far smarter people than me are looking at, and hopefully some of this information will come out.
The biggest thing is the strength of your theory was that it was so simple that someone should have very quickly, we know the last coordinates of the plane were southwest of the original destination. There's no evidence that it diverted from that path. So someone should have gotten on, one or more jets and flown that path out until the maximum possible distance and saw, right away, because as you said, every hour, every day, stuff's moving. But within a few hours, they likely would have seen it if it had crashed along that path. And if they didn't do that, and I guess we don't know for sure if nobody did that. I don't know, do we? I mean, then it seems like that would have saved us in the family's weeks of us just curious and maybe in the back of our mind worried about getting on a plane, with this fear of the unknown, which is a traditional human weakness. But
we don't know whether that search would have been fruitful on day one or not, but I think it's a search that should have been carried out right away. I mean, I'm not an experienced search and rescue person. I have no special talents. I have a little bit of intelligence and common sense, more common sense probably than intelligence. And common sense told me the guy turned back to the coast. The Malaysian radar said that this heading was maintained, and the aircraft disappeared from radar on that heading. So common sense told me that somebody should get in a plane and fly that heading until you know the fuel ran out on that jet, because you might see it somewhere along that line. And when I was taught to fly in Canada, okay, I was taught by a very experienced bush pilot, and he told me in the north, if you're ever disoriented and you get in a whiteout and you don't know which way you're going or which way to proceed, take a heading and maintain that heading. Don't deviate from it, because if anybody by chance sees a radar blip, they'll go and search that heading. Or if somebody on the ground looks up and hears an aircraft going overhead and they say, well, it was going north, they'll search north or they'll search west, whatever. But
is that the same kind of argument, or is that the same kind of lesson about trusting your instruments rather than your senses?
No, it's not. No, yeah. Trusting your instrument pilots trust their instruments. I mean, when you're completely blind in an aircraft in cloud or in, you have to trust your instruments that they're telling you your aircraft attitude and position. Your senses might tell you something different. And that is something every instrument pilot, as he's trained, has to learn.
I have an unrelated question to the Malaysian thing for you, and then let's do a round robin, and then if anyone else has more, real quick. But we've definitely kept you longer than we anticipated, and I'm really grateful for you. This has been fascinating. But we recently had the anniversary, I think, the 5th year of the so-called Miracle on the Hudson. And as a 20-year pilot, I saw there was a similar incident before that where I guess the key was he didn't land it perfectly flat the way Captain Sullenberger did. And once that wing hit the water, it was over and it crunched up. But Sullenberger's landing, how big a deal was that? To a layman, I mean, I was like, whoa, but he just made it like in the Olympics figure skating, they make it look so easy, How big a deal is it to take a big plane, I don't know what kind of plane it was, if it was 777 or whatever it was, and land it on the Hudson River, perfectly level? And what was your impression when you saw that as a pilot?
Well, I think all pilots were extremely impressed, okay? This was a great feat of airmanship. But what to me that indicated was that Sullenberger was 100% prepared for any emergency. He took command and he knew exactly where his limits of his plane. ATC is telling him the runway at Teterboro. He knows in his gut that he can't make it to Teterboro. He makes the quick decision that he's got one place to put it down. He's not going to put it down on a street in Manhattan. He's going to lay it down on the water. And this is what a captain is paid for. I mean, this is the moment when you want somebody at the controls who's got a very cool head and can assess the situation perfectly. Great feat of airmanship to put it down, that no wing dug in and it wasn't spun around and broken up. Everybody got out.
And it was all like 2.5 minutes, right? It was fast.
Absolute miracle. But this brings something else into this whole Malaysian Air thing. You see, NBC News, I'm sitting up there listening one night, and they're saying, whoa, well, information has come to us exclusively that 10 minutes before the aircraft disappeared, that new coordinates were put in to the flight management system for a new routing. I don't know where they got this information, but the fact of the matter is a pilot should always be ahead of his aircraft. And I wrote in my post, a pilot should know all the airports behind him, abeam him, and in front of him that he could make an emergency landing at if something happens in the next 10 seconds. This has always got to be in his head. This pilot was so professional, I believe, that he punched in the coordinates of, I don't know this for sure, but he punched in the coordinates of an airport of safe harbor back on the mainland into that flight management computer before he crossed the coast, because it is common practice when going over water that the pilot punches in the coordinates of an airport of safe harbor or other airports, safe harbor airports, so that he can make a decision very quickly which one he's going to go to.
So he could have put in several of them, and not necessarily told it to do them, but just had them in there, and then just quickly. So that's one less thing he has to worry about. He's not looking at a map when fire's happening.
Yeah, well, when something happens aboard an aircraft, you don't want to be sitting there thinking about what you're going to do. You got to know what you're going to do is already in your head, and that's what I guess Captain Sullenberger had in his head, and other people who've pulled the rabbit out of the hat.
There's no substitute for a few gray hairs when you're in a jam and you got someone with 30 years experience. Training's one thing, but there's no substitute for experience.
Well, it's the old 10,000 hour thing. When a person gets enough experience in one field of endeavor in their life, and they've been through all the possible scenarios, they usually have the knowledge to succeed. I maintained in my posting, my original posting, don't condemn these guys. They may very well have been in a heroic struggle to try to save that plane and save everybody on board. So until we know, I would never question those pilots' motivations and what they were doing.
Anybody else got any final questions here for Chris Goodfellow, who's been very kind with his time this evening?
No questions, but thank you. From one fellow photographer to another, although I'm very amateurish, but I thank you.
Well, thank you, Sheila. Are you with Google, Sheila? Do you work with Google, or are you? Tell me about what you do.
Me, I'm just a simple gal from Utah who's a school crossing guard, and I like to take pictures.
Great. So you joined this panel tonight as a Google Plus user.
Exactly.
Okay.
She's being a bit modest, Chris.
I probably gathered that. Yeah.
I can teach you a few things. Just reach out.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know whether I don't know whether I want to be taught 0 to 60 in 0.1 seconds again, because it's quite a ride. It's quite a ride, and I'm fearful that when I travel to some of those far off places, people might point at me. It happened to me once before when this is long ago in the internet, at the beginning of the internet. I wrote a program in Perl that was a pretty good auction program, not as good as eBay because it didn't succeed. But I wrote an auction program and set it up in Quebec, and but it never went viral.
I'll go easy.
Well, let me. I guess I have one last question for you, Chris. How's your experience been in your first Hangout on Google? Well, your second, because we did like a 3-minute one this morning or this afternoon. And have you had fun? I hope.
I've had a great time with you guys. Thank you. And you know, I appreciate being given the opportunity to speak to you. I just, you know, look, I'm just a simple guy down in retirement in Florida, 20 miles south of St. Augustine, and you know, this was an event that happened. I'm happy that if in some small way it contributes to the final finding of this aircraft and bringing some peace for the families concerned. The families have been in my mind from day one. I mean, this is a very difficult thing, having no proof. I mean, if we just have a little bit of proof, then people can begin closure. Because I still see posts where people, you know, are expressing that this is, you know, that the aircraft is somehow going to reappear.
Yeah, there's some heartbreaking things like that young
Yeah.
lady who was tweeting about her dad, and it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And in the
Yeah.
end, that's what this is about. This is about those 200 and some, 255, I think, human beings. So thank you very much, Chris. I hope we'll get to talk again once we know something. Didn't have to be on this show, but maybe we can do a quick hangout or something, and maybe you can put things into perspective once we know something, because right now we're all just sort of, you know, how much longer until we find something out. But thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
One thing, I've put everybody who has written a comment and people who have me in their circles. I'm putting all those people in a circle called MH370. And as I've told a few people, before this is all over, I think I'm going to reach out to the family of the pilots. If they're exonerated, I'll reach out to the pilots of the family in some fashion, because I feel that I was touched by the fact these people were just, you know, pilots. I said in one interview, pilots are a band of brothers, you know, and they really need to look out for each other. That's there's lots of books about pilots people can read. Ernest Gahn made movies in Hollywood, some of his books. For young people, they should read those books and understand. And flight is a great thing. I encourage anybody, any young person who wants a career in aviation, go for it. Go for it. I wish I'd made my career in commercial aviation as well. I mean, unfortunately, I became a businessman. I got an education, and then I used an aircraft as a tool to fly, as a tool of business. That's it, guys.
That's awesome. And we agree that, you know, we hope this comes to a resolution so that the families will know, and they won't be forever questions about the motives of, you know, the two Russian guys or the Iranian young men and the pilot. You know, their families will always live under this dark cloud forever, unfairly, probably. So, you know, I hope they find out what happens. But I do thank you very much.
Indeed.
Chris
Indeed.
Goodfellow in
Okay.
beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, right?
No.
Where?
I'm in Palm Coast.
Palm
Florida.
Coast.
Now that's 20 miles south of St. Augustine. I'm 4 miles south of the old Marineland attraction, the first dolphin attraction in Florida, before it all moved down to Orlando. And when I was a young kid, I grew up in the Bahamas, and when I was a young kid, my mother used to drive every summer up to Canada with my brother and I, and we stopped the first night near where I live right now, and she'd treat us to Marineland. So I always had this part deep in my heart. It's a lovely part of Florida. St. Augustine, incidentally, next year will be the 450th anniversary of the founding of the oldest city in the United States. It's a great place to visit. I'm not on the tourist board there, but it's one reason why I moved here. It's a fantastic little town. Lots of things to do. Okay.
We're not jealous at all. At least Craig, he lives in Maryland like 7 months a year, and then he travels down to Sarasota. So y'all are on the same page. This is a beautiful
Well,
time
I had
to
to
be.
live 30 years, 100 miles north of Montreal, and it was lots of winters, so I know what winter's like. But
You've earned your
anyway,
summers. Thank you very much.
take care. Good
Awesome.
night. Good night, all.
Thanks. All right, that was great. That was very interesting. Chris Goodfellow. Follow him on Google+. All right, so cool.
I am.
So next up, Alan, can you take over for a moment, and we'll go to topic number 2.
Sure, although I was going to hand this over to Moritz because he had a great intro to this.
Oh, okay, sure. Have you want to do it?
But he doesn't seem to be responding at the moment. So instead, I guess I will either cover it or come to another topic. At any rate, one of the, I guess we'll start this one. Google posted today a video called Way of a Warrant. And it discusses how they handle search warrants when they're presented with them. Has anybody seen the video?
I have, and I actually really liked it. It brought to light a lot of questions a lot of people had, so I definitely liked it.
So can you tell us a little bit about it? I mean, aside from the obvious that it's talking about, what Google does when they get a warrant.
Okay, so basically, the way this works is, oh, go ahead, Sheila. Okay. Well, basically, the way it works is they have once they get a warrant from a government agency about something that they are, for whatever reason that they want to grab this information, Google has a process in which it goes through before it just easily gives up your information. I mean, from one angle, we think Facebook has an issue with this where they just freely give it up, but Google made it very transparent and very clear on how they give up their information, and they do a lot of checks and balances. They even try to fight it at some point, different points. So yeah, so I thought it was a good thing. I like the point that in some scenarios they'll let the user know that, hey, we sorry, we got to give your data up, and I like that. I like the fact that there's that ability in there.
Now, this also comes on the heels of as we covered last week, Microsoft going and doing its own investigation of email that was sent through Hotmail that was, shall we say, unfavorable to Microsoft, very unfavorable, shall we say, stealing their intellectual property. Did it address any of those issues? That Google could or could not do the same sorts of things. Is there a reason why we're losing everyone? Am I even on the air? Okay, we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. Does anybody know if we are still on the air?
I can hear you, Alan. I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. And I see you've walked back into the frame, and I seem to still be streaming on YouTube, so I'm assuming we're still live. Apologies, everyone. So, not knowing what else is going on, I guess we will move on to the next subject, which was that, and this is one that I think I'd love to hear your take on, Craig, that we're now seeing more and more of the mainstream networks are using Hangouts for various things. So it's been commented on today that Fox, I don't know if it was Fox News, is now incorporating Hangouts into their programs, and Good Morning America has done so. We know how you feel about mainstream media, so what's your thoughts on this?
What they can do, by the way, I have my fan running overhead, so you're probably going to hear it. That's why I'm muting when I'm not talking, but Yeah, they might as well do whatever they can do to try to survive. I wish them luck. Good luck with that. See how that works out for them. Yeah, sure, they should use Hangouts. My issue right now is with YouTube, but that's a whole other story.
Okay, thank you everybody for commenting things like we're still live. Seems sluggish. A couple of you seem to say that we're sluggish, but that I'm still on the air. So thank you for that. It's always good to know that we're still on the air.
I would let me address that. This is, as many of you know, I use open broadcasting software, and for the first time ever, I know Craig earlier today was having problems with YouTube and Gmail. I was having problems with Drive, and then now, for the first time tonight ever, I was getting like 30% dropped frames during this live stream. I've never had that happen before during one of these shows. So I don't know if something is up today or what, but if we're in between topics, there's a great topic Craig and I were discussing, this insane situation he had with YouTube that would be very interesting if we can squeeze it in, if we're talking about that area.
Yeah, and I'll just, it's not complicated. I posted today on my Google Plus. I can understand when I upload a video and it's got some music in it. Maybe I was at an event and some copyrighted music was playing in the background. I can understand that being flagged. But I can't understand when I shoot a video of a friend of mine and she's just talking about a particular subject that she's into, and it's a nice video, and I upload it to YouTube, and it's got no music whatsoever. It's got no copyrighted material that I know of in it. It's just her sitting in her dining room, and it gets flagged, and I'm asked to provide proof that I have the rights to the content in the video. And I'm like, what proof? I mean, I wrote to him, I said, I shot the video with my camera in my friend's dining room. What do you want me to prove here? And YouTube won't even tell me what they want me to prove. They're in their canned responses, they're basically saying, well, you know, whatever's in the video, implying like music and things like that, which isn't even in there. So I don't know if they want me to get a model release from the girl that's in the video. I don't know exactly what they want, and it's just bizarre. And I edited the video down into a shorter video and re-uploaded it just in case that one video was flagged just randomly or whatever. And sure enough, they flagged the second one that I uploaded. So bizarre things are going on, if you ask me.
Okay.
I told him he should take 30-second video of a potted plant in his living room, no audio at all, no graphics of any kind, maybe a minute and a half, and upload it and see if they ping it. It was literally just a person talking.
I may try that tomorrow.
And just, you know, simple lower third font, you know, go to this URL or whatever. No fancy graphics, no music, nothing. And he gets flagged, and then he responds text-wise. Then they come back to him and say you have to upload proof that you own. What is he supposed to? So you did a doc, right?
Yeah, I did a
my
document
camera. I use a Sony A7R.
Shot with my camera, and I gave all the details. You know, I shot it in my friend's room, and you know, I just gave the details of how we did it. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to do. You know what somebody said, and it might be true. Somebody said that it looked too good, that the lighting and the girl, she looks like a professional, you know, whatever, you know, actress or whatever, and that it looked too good, and that therefore they want proof that I shot it or something. I don't know. I guess because my stuff is usually lousy, and this happened to look pretty good. Somebody said that's the reason. I don't know what the reason is. I just would like to know the reason. I just like them to tell me.
We got a couple of comments.
Why they flagged it.
We got a couple of comments. Richard, it's not just audio they look at, but also video. Thomas, it might be a model release. And I understand your issue with you just like them to tell you why. I do know that one of the reasons why they're always cagey about doing so is because they're concerned that people who are intentionally flaunting the system will find the loophole in the whole thing and exploit the loophole, and they don't want that. That said, this does seem a bit on the ridiculous side.
So now I need to get a model release from everybody that I shoot?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah. Oh, well. I guess if they look gorgeous like Audrey, by the way, you can see it, just go to my channel, go to my YouTube channel, you can see the video. I guess if they're just drop dead gorgeous, then I got to get a model release, because that's the deal.
Plus, it was a promo for her. So obviously she was supportive. I mean, she was looking in the camera, watch my show and talking about her stuff. Obviously, she was an active participant. It was being videotaped for the sole purpose of posting it on YouTube to promote her show. And maybe you need to buy the fonts. That's what it is. You have not purchased the Adobe Garamond
fonts that I
font.
put on in Final Cut Pro 10. I guess, I got to prove that I have rights to Final Cut Pro 10. I mean, I can understand if they get a complaint. I can understand if Audrey were to write them and say, hey, I didn't authorize this, I didn't want this video to be up on YouTube or whatever. I can understand them responding to a complaint. But just willy-nilly out of the blue saying, prove what? Prove that you have the rights to the content in this video. Prove I have the right to use the Sony camera I shot it with. Prove that I own the lens that was on it. I mean, what the hell do I need to prove here? That's kind of bizarre. It seems like to me they have there's other things they could spend their time on. So anyway, that's the end of my rant.
You can always send back and notice that they've done an unauthorized takedown.
And they just won't let me monetize it. They just refused the right to monetize it. They didn't take it down. And they've still got the green question mark
equivalent
on it. Well, I mean, it's not the end of the world because this particular video isn't going to get a ton of views. I wouldn't make that much money on it anyway, but it's just I'd like to know what I'm doing wrong so that I don't do it wrong in the next time in a video that might get a lot of views. That's just the thing. I just want to know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, and it's a different issue when someone protests. You would have gotten a different, because I had that happen. I had a guy come on the show and then file a complaint that his image was being used without authorization. And I just responded and said, well, he knew fully well I said it was a show and I was taking audience questions and calls, and I said that this is BS. And they came back and said, okay, fine. And I won it. So even, but it's a different thing. I mean, if a company says you violated their copyright, or if a person says you are exploiting their image without permission, or if they just do a random check or whatever, which this appears to be, I think it's a random proactive thing that they do once in a while. Because I had one for this show. They said, prove that and I've been like, for 2 years, I've been using the same freaking ghetto intro. And all of a sudden now, so then I had to go to Digital Juice and download the terms of service for the music and the video and show that I did this and all the things I bought. And I just did a couple of them. I didn't do them all. And then they came back and said, okay, fine. I think it's an algorithm.
I'm going to share my screen, Dan.
Okay.
Let's see if we can pull this off. I don't know. Can you put this up if I share it on my screen?
Yeah, we'll see it.
Okay, so this is the thing I posted, and it's in my stream. You can take a look at it. What they did was they sent this thing, and it says, your video is not approved for monetization. To consider your request, YouTube requires information regarding the commercial use rights for your video. Now, if I check this thing, which I did, there's a little checkbox I can prove. I checked it, and I wrote in the box the information that she was just sitting in her living room and blah, 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 and what camera I used and all that. Then they came back and responded to that saying, we need additional proof. We need you to attach documentation. And then that's where the step where I'm at now. So this is the first step of the flag, is this one here, and this is the second video that I uploaded today that was a cut down version of the same video that also got flagged. So anyway, that's what the
documentation are they asking for?
They don't say. They say proof that I have the commercial rights, that I have commercial use rights is the wording they're using right here. YouTube requires information regarding your commercial use rights for your video. So what I wrote back to them was, I shot it in my friend's living room with her sitting at her table with my camera, my lens, and I edited it in Final Cut Pro and I uploaded it to YouTube. You know, basically that's what I did. And then they wrote back, we need additional documentation, and they reiterated to prove that you have the commercial rights. And so I don't know if they want a letter from her or what they want. You know?
Have you tried reposting the video up a second time and seeing if the same
I did. Yes, I did. And I cut it down. I edited something out of it so that it wasn't as long, as many minutes. So I changed it a little bit, right? And I uploaded it again just because I figured it was an algorithm, right? And this time maybe they wouldn't get. Sure enough, they flagged the second one. So.
I mean, it is a nice looking
like
video.
Something else. It must look like something else in their algorithm system, probably.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe they thought that he had downloaded it from some site, some hooping site or something.
I'm telling you, I think what it is she is drop dead gorgeous and looks like she could be a professional actress or something, and so I think that's the deal.
But if that would have been a person determining that, and they would have seen your first response.
The algorithm can pick it up, because algorithms can look at bone structure and eyes and things like that. I mean, there's certain characteristics to extreme beauty, and Audrey meets all those characteristics, so they might have just flagged her for being extremely beautiful.
That would be a story. How come I never get flagged?
Look, now your picture's real fuzzy, and now it's back in focus. Okay. Now, see, if you're in focus like that, you'd get flagged. You almost look like a leading man type.
Sort of an early Sean Connery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Pam said, well, I don't think it was on the air, but Pam said that, never mind. I'll leave out what she said.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
Our audience will never know.
That's enough on that story, but I just thought maybe one of the viewers might have gone through this process and finally realized why they're flagging this. It's just her talking. That's all there is. There's no music whatsoever.
Okay. All right, so there we have it. Now we got, let's pull a CNN. I wish I had a breaking news logo, but we got some breaking news from Gerwin Sturm this week. Alan, tell us about this breaking news from Gerwin. It was a funny post.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's how we found it. About the notifications.
Oh. Okay.
He just did a post said breaking news.
Gerwin. Okay. Yeah. So this is absolutely thrilling and exciting stuff. The notification system has been dramatically and radically changed, so that instead of seeing the number of new notifications you have in a little red square above the bell icon, you now see it in a circle. This is revolutionary. What do you think of it, Cadeas?
Oh, it's a little cosmetic change. Nothing significant.
You don't understand the radical nature of this. I mean, it's like this is the first place in all of Google Plus where they're using a circle. Oh, wait. Maybe it isn't. No, I suppose.
The question
is, you still don't understand just how revolutionary this is.
I haven't had enough time to play with it. That's the problem.
What would be revolutionary? Excuse me, but what would be revolutionary would be if the notifications would work.
Actually, I was amazed. Notifications are now working for me. And they hadn't been before, but with this change, they actually started working. I was thrilled.
They do work, occasionally.
No, previously they weren't working for me at all. I would never get a red box notification until I now get red circle notifications. So I'm thrilled by that.
I tried to plus mention Dan in the post I did about the video thing we just talked about earlier. I tried to plus mention him in there, and it wouldn't even let me plus mention him. I typed Dan space MC D whatever I typed. His name didn't come up. All kinds of other names came up, but not his.
Speaking of notifications, I did get to the bottom of the Google Plus notification issue, Alan. It turns out that it's only going to notify you if the post that you created is initiated from Glass. So you need to create the post from Glass, and then you'll get all those notifications, but you don't get the notifications on the go, and that was straight from Google.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so if I just plus mention you, you're not going to get that, but if you post a picture and then I comment to the picture, you're going to get every piece of notification for that one post.
Is there a way that you can, like on my phone or my tablet, I can go to Google Plus and I can go to the notifications thing and hit refresh? Is there any way to do that on Glass, like force notifications?
No, because that's the thing. They're not even notifying you currently. So I put in a request for that to be added. So there'll probably be 2 iterations before that comes out, 2 updates before that comes out.
Is there is that a glitch or a design decision that they made for some reason, do you think?
I'm assuming it's a design decision because they don't really want to. I can see how a person like you who gets 100 notifications in 20 minutes, you wouldn't want that blasting you in Glass all day long. So I can see that, but I think that for certain people like myself who like to handle the notifications right as they come in, I would want those to come through. So I think that should just be a user choice.
Yeah, because you can always filter people.
Well, I think, you know what, I think this actually goes to a fundamental design problem with notifications on Google Plus as a whole, is that they have this very binary, show it on desktop, show it on mobile, without really getting into some of the nuances about, okay, there are some things that I might want to see on desktop and other things on mobile. The counter-argument to that is that starts turning into a management mess. And while everyone always thinks they like knobs, nobody really likes knobs. You just think you do. So I can see it being an issue that that still needs to be worked out, but I don't predict major changes to it. And honestly, I think the solution of only stuff that came from Glass will go to Glass, that's an interesting solution. I'm not completely sure I agree with it, but I think it's a good first approach to narrowing the problem.
Okay.
Okay, hot and happening stories tonight.
Indeed. So next up, click the Google app. This is another massive story. The Google app thing, and I'll share my screen here.
This one is actually a massive story.
What? Go ahead and talk about it, and I'm going to show my screen so people can see. You can just move these things around, right? No, you can't.
Maybe if you've got the new version of it. This is rolling out over the next few weeks. But what a lot of people noticed what a lot of people wanted when we got this new method to switch between Google services, the 9-box selector or the 9-box menu item, is they wanted a way to customize what showed up there. Either rearrange the order or put stuff there or treat it like a bookmark or whatever. Now that's beginning to roll out. So you can you will be able to drag the icons to whatever order you want, put the Google services in the first menu that comes up, the first 9 that show up, rearrange them however you want. If you go to a Google service that is not currently on the list and you click the 9 boxes, it prompts you if you want to add it to the menu. It is, in some ways, it's a clever way to encourage people to stick with Google applications, because you're going to have this great new menuing system there, which, is neither great nor particularly new, but it's there.
Yeah,
Your
I like
thoughts on
it.
this, Cadeas?
I like this because I would love to put these in an order that I would like. Like right now, looking at mine, I have Google Plus, which that was a good choice for to be in the first one. But then it goes to Google Search, which I can just do in the box at the top, and then Google Sites, which I don't even use. Google Groups, which is I feel is useless. So I would love to put like the admin dashboard up here for the Google Apps accounts, or the Google Wallet, or a few of these other ones. I would rather just put right at the top because those are the ones that I use. But obviously I have a Google Apps account, so I probably won't get this for another 2 years. So I'm gonna have to just deal with it how it is. So
I don't know. The normal Google users don't seem. Actually, didn't this roll out initially to apps accounts at the same time as everyone else?
I don't know. It never enabled for me. So
No, not the rearranging, the new menu box.
I just looked around. It was here. I actually hadn't read anything on it before it came out, so I wasn't sure. I'm not sure.
Well, it makes sense because, like, Blogger, for example, is in the second tier. There's 3 tiers, right? There's the initial 9, then there's click more, and you get like 6 or whatever more, and then there's even more, and then you get this big list. A lot of people may not be at all interested in Google News, which is in the top tier by default, and they may be a frequent Blogger user, so they'd want to move that up and move news down or what have you. So yeah, this is just...
Well, that's interesting. So you got Google News in the top, because I don't. So maybe this isn't even following a...
Is it algorithmic based on what you've used?
No,
No, because I never use Google Sites.
apps accounts get something different. Have a different menu structure based on what's been permitted, and just in general what Google Apps offers, than what the normal Gmail accounts get.
Alan, can you look at yours and tell me what you have? I have...
Yes, Dan.
You're not an apps user.
I am both.
But I mean,
so
right now you're
my,
not logged in as apps.
So I'm on both. So on my Gmail account, I have in order Google Plus, Search, YouTube, Maps, Play, News, Gmail, Drive, Calendar.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have. So that must be standardized.
On my apps account, I have Plus, Search, Mail, Drive, Calendar, Sites, Groups, which is probably exactly what Cadeas has.
Cadeas does have a comment.
We have a comment. Why don't you unmute and read it to us?
Richard says that he's never really used it before, considering that everything he has is in the Chrome app launcher. So, yeah.
So he'll just click to a new tab and just select from there.
No, I think if he's talking about the Chrome app launcher, I think he's talking about the one that goes down in your if you have a Mac, it's down in your little bar across the bottom. I can't remember the name of it right now.
Okay.
I don't know where it goes on Windows, but yeah. You can arrange those, actually. I use those when I remember about them.
Sometimes I wonder if they tweak these things just to make everyone remember that they exist.
Actually, there was a related story to that comment about Facebook recently, where one of the employees was kind of bemoaning the fact that some great new features that they were rolling out stopped rolling out because they weren't getting a good enough response rate on the A/B testing. And don't laugh, Cadeas, because Google does this too.
I know.
And for folks who don't know, A/B testing meaning that they roll it out selectively to some users to see what kind of engagement they get. All the companies do that.
Right, but the complaint is that it starts being purely number driven as opposed to being driven by good features.
There was a big debate about this in the journalism circles about Neil A. Patel from The Verge. Someone asked, I don't know if it was him or Vox, whatever, about what their numbers were on posts or whatever, and they said, we don't release that, and they don't release it to the writers, was the story, because they said they want the writers writing good content. They don't want them writing for the traffic. And so they don't even tell the writers which of their posts do the best. And then I think then later it came out, well, they can get the information, but they don't actively encourage it. But that was interesting. That's kind of the same thing. They want the quality and let the managers worry about setting the direction for traffic. And I love that thing that Facebook said that they're going to do a save it for later or whatever option on posts. And I advocated in my share of that story. I really wish Google had that, because there are these roundabout ways, sharing it to a circle with an account you don't use, and or like Alan, I think you taught me that put a / comment, a / following or something, then you can search in Google. But those are kludgy ways to do it. They should just have a save for later to bookmark a post. Because sometimes, like, I'll be walking out, I'll have 50 notifications, and I'll look through real quick, and then, you know, maybe you've got a TLDR post that I don't have time to read right then, but I want to save it, right? Because you wouldn't have shared it to me if it wasn't something, you know, you think I'd be interested in. But then that notification's gone once I've opened it, right? And then with my ADHD, I'm not going to remember it later to check for it. So I want to just be able to click like a bookmark or save or something, put in my something. I don't know. But hopefully I/O they'll do that, because that seems like such a simple button. You know, that it's not like rock pulling teeth to get that done. And I think a lot of people like the idea. Do you guys like that idea? To be able to, you know, tag a post to save it or watch it, read it later or something?
Yes and no. Go ahead. You go first, Kadeus.
I was gonna say I do that right now, but I just share it to an empty circle, and then I can just go back and look at that empty circle and only see my stuff in it. So I don't think they need to make anything spectacular for it. I think somebody else was saying they do it to a community, to just a community of just themselves. So
do you think that that's a logical way to do it, to encourage noobs to be able to figure out how to do basic things on Google Plus?
Well, it's not that, because Google Plus, at least this aspect of Google Plus, is used as a social side of things. So it's not like reading news articles and saving them for later. That's a little different from being social. So I can see why it's not there. But if I want to save them for later, I can just make a circle, or I think Michael Ellis is one that does the community thing. Or I mean, again, this is mainly for socializing, at least this aspect of the platform.
For example, Chris was coming on the show, and he wrote the very long, not very long, but, you know, significantly long, a 5-minute read post that went viral. And then I wasn't able to save it or bookmark it in any way. So I wanted to read it. That's why I was like, thank you.
Really, Dan? You're incapable of using a bookmark?
It should be built in, is what I'm saying. What I did was I was like, okay,
Your
so
browser
Goodman or
doesn't have
Goodfellow,
bookmarks
and then I
built
went,
in?
I found his profile on there. Like when I shared the event, I wasn't able to save the event. So to share the event before the show tonight, I had to go into Google Plus search, and then I have to wait for my stupid animated GIF head thing to load, and then I type Google Plus, and it still hasn't found it yet. Then I type TV, then it finds our page.
Dan,
and then I go to the page and I find the event, then I click to it, the time, and then I can share it, you know.
Dan, I'm confused. You mean your browser doesn't have bookmarks? Maybe you should upgrade to Chrome.
I have Chrome.
You have Chrome?
I
do. know that Chrome has bookmarks, right?
Yeah, but I don't like that interface. It should be built into Plus.
Oh! So you don't like that interface. So that's different. So the fact, I
want everything the way I want it on this free
service.
So what
makes you think that you would actually like starring a post? What makes you think you would like that interface?
I don't know. I just think it's...
you don't know!
I think I would like it better if it were built in.
But see,
it's built in!
Okay, let's say, if you get an email in Gmail, should you have to email that freaking email to a dummy account in order to star it?
Dan, if I go to a post that I want to make sure I get back to later, I click on the post, I look at the post, and I bookmark it. It's that simple.
Yeah, see, so that makes me even feel like an idiot, because I never thought to do that. So, like, I've just always just shared.
None of these are bad options.
But here's the thing, Dan.
Saving it to a circle.
But Dan, if you add one more button, that's one more button. I have to explain to my grandmother why she shouldn't be hitting it.
Which is exactly why
So literally,
which is exactly why Chi-Chu always says no to new buttons.
Right, because here we are. We already at the bottom of a post. We already have the +1.
That's one more thing I have to tell my grandfather.
If you're on a tablet, we already have the comment button, and it's hard to explain don't hit the share to make a comment. Hit the comment to make a comment. So now we got a star here that probably won't have any. I don't even know why it's called star.
And
so
it's called star because that's what we had in Gmail. Now you got to remember also that once you put a star there, you're going to want people who want to actually star it, with a red star and a yellow star and a blue star because each one means something different. So when you want to save it for later under a blue star thing, okay, so once you're doing that, then you're going to get people that actually want to use a label instead of a star. So this is why we don't have this feature.
This
and
is
actually,
why
that's
we don't
probably
have
why
nice
they
things.
make the link feature available, where you can go and get the link, or like you said, click on the post, which puts the link in your browser, and then save it in your browser history. Or if you got a little extension, you can throw it to whatever. I think somebody was saying use it, read it for later, or one of those other.
There are extensions. The problem with all of the extensions is that Google could break them at any moment by changing the layout even slightly.
If they stop letting you see the post when you click on it.
Well, not even then. I mean, even just with the layout that we see today, if they change the internal markup, it may not be visible to us, but the extensions will break because of that.
Okay, this is a couple comments here.
A great comment. Let me use this one from Tim. I like bookmarks, but they're out of control. I find them hard to find. Yes, and I'm willing to bet that once people start starring posts, if they did such a thing, they would find them hard to find.
Because I run into the same problem on Feedly, where I have all my articles that I like to read, and then they have one where you can bookmark for later, actually. Do you know I bookmark so much stuff for later that I don't even want to go click on it because I probably have 1,000 things bookmarked, and I still have to shift through all that to find the one thing that I'm looking for.
There is sort of the way, like I'm procrastinating, like I'm going to put it on my to-do list, and it's a way to get some sort of feeling of accomplishment, like you've completed this task when really.
But like you said,
that is true. Yeah, there's that phenomenon. Not that as an ADHD person I would know anything about procrastinating. All right, so a couple more.
And that's the thing that Google Plus, when we interviewed Vic Gundotra last year, we asked him about this, remember? And one of the comments that he said was, Google Plus as a social system is different than an email system. We use them differently, we treat them differently, and we can't give them the exact same interface. And I think, I on some level agree. It would be nice to have a way to read things later, or have a nice way to if I look at a notification, to unread a notification. These would be good things, but these are generally not how notifications and a social system work. They're more ephemeral. They're more transient than our email systems.
And then furthermore, that tells you that if you have a post that is that long, shouldn't that be a blog? At that point, shouldn't that be a blog that you link to? Because I experimented with this when Google Plus first started, where I would type a book, and then the more I started typing books, I started realizing this should just be on a blog. When I'm mad about something and I'm ranting, that's really only my blog as far as when I'm mad about something going on, I go and put it on a blog. Now I can link to that, and then if people want to read it for later, they can use all their, whether it's the Safari, all the little services on the side. You can use all that to save the link and then get back to it. Because again, you're trying to be social on this aspect of Google+.
Thomas Milne says, I use Firefox and it bookmarks my homepage via fast dial. This gives me visual of my bookmarks and helps keep them organized. Thomas Milne says, off topic, Blackberry wins court order to halt Typo sales. I didn't know anything about that. But the first...
Oh, wow. I was wondering, I thought they was going to actually skate by on that one. I'm kind of disappointed in Typo.
Well, here's the lead paragraph. BlackBerry won. This is from Bloomberg. BlackBerry won a court order barring Ryan Seacrest's Typo Products LLC from selling a $99 iPhone case after convincing a judge that Typo is probably infringing its patents. So we have Ryan Seacrest, BlackBerry, and something called Typo. I missed.
I wonder what patent they think they're violating. Having a keyboard?
But that Typo keyboard, I play with that at CES, and that Typo keyboard is the spitting image of the BlackBerry keyboard. All the way down to how it feels, the whole 9 yards. It is a BlackBerry keyboard.
Alan, look in the pop-up chat with 22 people in it that we're in. I put the link in there from Bloomberg.
on that. I'm not disputing that, but I just thought they would. I don't know. The way the legal system works, I just thought the typo would somehow slide by. I didn't think they was going to actually have to do that. I'm shocked that it got halted.
Okay,
Now,
tell me, what is it? What is a typo? Is it a
what it
case
does
with a keyboard
is it
in
takes
it?
your iPhone. It's an iPhone case that actually attaches a Blackberry. I want to say the 9700 size keyboard, but it attaches a 9700 size keyboard down on the bottom of your iPhone, and it connects to the iPhone via Bluetooth.
Does it slide out?
Say it again.
It slides in and out, or
it's a case, so you click it in and it's in there. And so with that, it gives you a keyboard on your iPhone, which a lot of people complain that they want a keyboard for the legacy Blackberry people.
And ironically, BlackBerry just said that the old ones are outselling the new ones, and they're going to go back to the Bold. They're going to re-release it because people like that legacy.
But this is
nobody
the thing.
ever
But here's the
dissed.
thing. With the
That's the
Typo
best thing
keyboard,
about BlackBerry. The security and that damn QWERTY keyboard was fantastic. The physical keyboard, which I'm a fan of.
But here's the thing. With that Typo keyboard, they won't have to do that. The people can now carry their love for the keys into the new devices, which is if you notice, the website is Typo Keyboards with an s.com. So it insinuates that they were getting ready to go and put this on every device, but the iPhone was the first one that they started with.
But it's now woulda, coulda, shoulda.
I'm going to tell you, I love this quote here. Here we are. This is my favorite one so far. BlackBerry would be irreparably harmed by lost sales of its smartphones and consumer confusion over the devices, unless the sales are stopped, BlackBerry said.
Mark the time here, Alan, and give me a 5
I've
count.
already got it.
Okay, so you are showing as muted. The muted thing's on, but we can hear you clearly, but the video is following the muted button. Go ahead and give me a 5 count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4,
Yeah.
4, 4.
Cadeas is still on the screen, but it's got a false...
I am still on the screen.
Yeah, it's got a false mute thing. Go ahead and mute and unmute yourself, and let's see if that fixes it or if you're permanently stuck in some no man's land.
Okay, what now?
Okay, this is the new bug. We've found yet a new bug.
Okay, so can you refresh, Alan? Can you refresh the window and see what happens?
Moritz is still hanging strong. He's probably out at an Irish pub somewhere and forgot to.
Oh, I'm shocked. I'm looking at the live stream over here on the TV, and I am still on the screen. I was shocked at that. I didn't realize that till you said it, and I looked over and was like, oh wow.
So now it shows.
But anyway, so go ahead. Oh, Alan's back. Go ahead, try it now, Alan.
Try what now?
So it was just that
glitch.
one.
It was a rare Google glitch. But that is a neat bug. We like to document these, and then we call 1-800-Google, and talk to their customer service team.
Not enough digits, Dan.
1-800-Google Plus.
Okay.
And so anyway, somebody was saying something.
So the Typo keyboard, I'm just shocked that the Typo keyboard is looking like it may not work out, because I just thought they would just win it. I don't know. I just thought the way things go, I just thought they'd win it. So, but it's a very useful keyboard if you can get your hands on it. I know they've been sold out, and they were like well into like June before you could get one. So many people was ordering them. So, yeah. So if
maybe
you can
they
get your
should
hands
pursue a licensing agreement, because there are a lot of folks like Craig Ship or you or any of us who are absolutely not getting a BlackBerry no matter what. But if they could get a piece of every, a bunch of iPhone and Android sales. I got one here too, but I mean that's not your primary phone, right?
Unfortunately, it's not.
You wouldn't give up that Boost mobile phone you got for nothing.
That's actually one phone I don't have. It's Boost Mobile.
So anyway, where are we?
We've been wondering that for the past 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 57 seconds.
Oh, Thomas. Thomas was the one that inserted this, so you can blame Thomas for that.
Good for him. Okay.
Even though it was more appropriate for our Monday night show, our Android Week, which appears at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Well, no, because that's an iOS device. That's an iOS device.
I have a weird pet peeve when someone gets EDT and EST mixed up. You know what I mean? They want to say Eastern Standard Time.
Considering you did it all the time for the first year of this show.
He
Did
still
I? Are you
does.
sure?
What, Dan?
Are you sure?
Yeah. You were trying to translate times into GMT and you got it wrong all the time.
So there's
I
some
noticed you
truth
don't
to
do
the
that
do as I
anymore.
say, not as I do axiom. You're like a wife. You remember everything I do wrong, and you can recall it on demand,
Not
putting me at a
everything, Dan,
competitive
but you do so
disadvantage.
many things wrong that I've got a long list.
Yeah. The only reason
So
you're on
moving
the
on to
show
the
is because
next
you were
topic.
pissed off at me. You wanted to call and yell at me. That's how it began. See? And I answered the phone. God, what was I thinking? Oh my goodness. All right. So where are we? We're at.
2 hours, 15 minutes, and 18 seconds.
So Google
We're-
and
we're-
Amazon dukes it out for the cloud. Go ahead, Dan. Take it away.
Well, I mean, I can give a basic 101 thing, but I mean, I swear to God, I saw this video. They said, my pre-introduction, and then Alan can introduce, or you can, is I remember Amazon Web Services put out a video about showing how easy it is to set up and host your WordPress blog on Amazon Web Services. And they were doing, and then you set up, the instance, and I was like, what the F is, I had no clue, you know what I mean? And I watched it a couple times because I was curious, like, is that cheaper than conventional hosting? Or faster, really, is what I was after. Because a lot of these guys are just reselling Amazon. Because when Amazon goes down, everybody goes down. Netflix, everybody. So then you realize, wow, they're using Amazon. But so yeah, this is unlike the announcement when they reduced the drive prices, which is consumer level. This is for guys like Alan who are hosting apps, or you, Cadeas, for more, enterprise stuff. So why don't one of you guys intro this? And so I guess Google announced a drop, and then Amazon announced a drop, and it's a significant. I mean, this is not like a 3% off thing. So go ahead, Alan.
Sure. Well, and basically, Google had a huge set of announcements on Tuesday where they were rolling out enhancements to their cloud platforms, including price drops on their cloud platform. And I'll be honest, I've barely been able to figure out everything that was announced. But amongst everything else, they were talking price drops in the range of 30% on some of their services, which is tremendous.
Wasn't it more on the lower volume users? In other words, if you were super high volume, then the gap between AWS and Google was narrower. So they were.
I don't know, because I didn't look at all of the price comparisons with AWS. It starts giving me a headache when I start looking at some of the stuff too carefully. But one of the, just looking at what Google's price drops, and Google's pricing was fairly competitive to begin with, and they just made it even more competitive. And then Amazon replied. So, I think that's a sign where Amazon's saying, oh yeah, we could have dropped these prices too. Because let's face it, once you've got somebody using your cloud platform, you're not going to have them leave, for the most part. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that they're offering. I mean, previously they had ways to automatically manage some of their services, and now they've expanded that to new automatically managed services. They've included DNS services for the first time, I believe. And I looked at the pricing on those, and I'm like, they're incredibly cheap. At least I think they're incredibly cheap. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's being rolled out with the cloud. We've seen them growing, at I/O every year. We see them offering more and more services. The fact that they announced all of this before I/O makes me wonder what they're going to launch at I/O.
Yeah, I'm looking here. I'm sharing a chart that I posted March 25th, 2014, and it shows, between like 31.58 to 36% reduction in price. Now, I don't know what this stuff means, like the money per core, current dollar core, sustained use, 20. I mean, I don't understand what all that is, and I guess you probably would be unable to explain it to anybody who didn't know, and anybody who knew wouldn't need the explanation. So, you know. But yeah, it's significant. So then what did Amazon do?
Amazon dropped their pricing. I mean, they just did a straight price cut to keep themselves competitive with Google. And I haven't even compared the pricing against the newest one.
What does it cost to host your average? Let's say, obviously, at one end of the spectrum, your Flappy Bird, where, if that even has centralized data, other than ad delivery. But I mean, one end of your Salesforce, and then another one you might be like your like one of your apps that has a small user base, just because Google Glass has a small user base, quality over quantity at this point.
Well,
what does it cost per month for one of these services?
Here's what it boils down to. Both Amazon's and Google services really don't make a huge amount of sense if all you're doing is setting up one server. Because there are lots of other hosted solutions out there where both of these services, and we should also mention that Microsoft has a similar but not identical service as well, called Azure. Thank you, Cadeas. What all of these have as their benefits isn't that you can do a hosted service. It's that as you get spikes in demand, when you get a lot of people trying to do something at once, or when you get mentioned in Wired magazine and your use, the number of users you have suddenly increases 100-fold in 10 minutes. That's when you need a system that can scale. And Google and Amazon are the masters of scale. So you're essentially taking advantage of their systems to scale your own system. So, when you suddenly have to scale your system 100-fold and you need to launch 10 or 100 new machines within about a minute, these are the services that will do it for you.
So if you're launching a Twitter competitor, you want to get someone who has game to figure this stuff out and use these things. But if you just need a consumer level easy to use small business solution, then you should get a consumer level small business easy to use solution.
If you're starting up a WordPress blog, you probably won't need something like this. But if you're looking to start up a highly interactive game, for example, that is sending its data to a server constantly and is exchanging its position with 10 of your teammates at the same time, you're going to need a robust, scalable, cloud-based solution, as opposed to trying to manage it all yourself.
And then the other thing too, even though these prices have dropped, one of the things that you run into is if you've built this massive game or whatever the case is, you're not going to go, oh, look, the prices is cheaper, let me go and hop over there. You're more than likely to start your upcoming projects in this new service than you are to try to do this migration from one platform to the other.
Which is why this is so great, because you don't have to. Because it's like the airlines when they lower or raise prices. Once one does it, the other one does it. You don't have to switch. You're still benefiting.
That's true. I mean, one of the reasons why you wouldn't switch also is that the systems behind scaling up, adding new services, those differ on every platform. So you can't just say, oh, I'll switch over from Amazon to Google tomorrow, because there's a lot that you're going to have to redo. The real question on both of them is which one, if you're starting a new project, which one is going to make it easier to manage and easier to do. And, Amazon's claim to fame is, we did it first, we do it best. Google's claim to fame is, we are the masters of scaling things, and we're going to make it easier for you. And Microsoft's claim to fame is, hey, what time is it again? I mean, we can do it with Windows, so you have a pretty graphic interface to do it.
Couple
that's
comments.
what all of them are pitching things slightly differently.
Thomas,
That actually is one of the interesting new additions on this round as well, is that Google is now also offering a Windows-based solution. So, Amazon's offered one for a while. Microsoft only offers Windows solutions because, nobody else uses any other operating system out there.
this new on this scalable, if you're creating the next Facebook, the new sequel. I forget the name. I saw that where Google. I haven't added any topics this week because I was concentrating on this Malaysian thing, but the new.
Yeah, that's an interesting story that I actually did not read through too carefully, but it sounds like
He can still wing it better than me.
Facebook and Google and a couple of other the really big guys are all talking about an extension to MySQL that is meant for massive, and when we say massive, we mean on a Google or Facebook scale, database system. So and it's changes to MySQL to handle that better. Considering that MySQL doesn't handle that very well to begin with, I think any changes would be an improvement. But, I don't know, it's interesting, but honestly, I really would hope that once you start getting that big, you start going towards a real database.
Like PHP or Pascal, DBase 3.
What was that, Jack?
I said like PHP or DBase 3. I was joking.
Yeah, something like that, Jack.
What's a real database? If you were designing Facebook from scratch.
You've got databases like DB2. You've got databases like Microsoft's SQL Server. I almost hesitate to say this, but even databases like Oracle. These are all databases that were designed for scale and were designed for data integrity. MySQL just wasn't. It was designed for small databases running at high speeds, and it failed on both of those accounts.
Are they developing this to make it open source so no one has to pay licensing?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Are they doing this? I think this is going to be an open source project, right? Because it's like a consortium of companies. Are they doing it this way rather than using something like Oracle or what have you? Because it'll be open source, they won't have to pay licensing fees?
Well, MySQL was as well. And they were building on top of that, so presumably it's going that way. I don't know.
Maybe it's because because of the lawsuit, they'll be able to poach each other's employees again. They won't be able to have agreements to not hire each other, and so they want everyone to know the same stuff. So there's less of a learning curve, maybe.
Go ahead with his comment from Cybernaut.
Cybernaut says, from his point of view, cloud services are still out of reach for most research projects because it's cheaper to build your own cluster than it is to rent those services from one of those cloud providers.
Is that accurate? I have no idea.
In some way it is.
It depends on what you're researching.
I think it depends on what you're researching. It also depends on having a good system administrator who you can exploit for cheap.
Also, code efficiency cannot be overstated. The importance of that. If you have good code that's clean, you could have poorly written code that causes a ton of instances to occur inefficiently. The stuff's bogged down. Whereas if it were written efficiently,
well, one of the things that I think Cybernaut has as a valid point is when he's talking about a cluster, he's generally meaning that we need all of these machines, and we need all of these machines on a fairly sustained basis. So it's not that you're going to be scaling up and scaling down as your load goes up and goes down. You've got a pretty constant load for a lot of these research needs. And on that, I can see if you've got a constantly known load, you can budget for that and you can plan for that. One of the advantages that things like Amazon Web Services and Google's cloud services offer is that they'll scale to what you need. And yes, you'll get charged for those additional resources, but you'll only get charged for the resources that you actually need at that moment. as opposed to having to secure it a fixed amount of resources for a fixed amount of time. So it depends on your needs. I don't know size specific requirements, but what he says probably has some merit to it.
Okay, so we got this other. Let me know when you're. Are we good on this? Because we got an interesting comparison on the Typo keyboard thing.
Sure.
So Richard Arkless commented on this and mentioned here. This is the side by side, which I've lost now. Here we go. This is the Blackberry on the left and the Typo on the right. And boy, I'll tell you what. I totally think BlackBerry has merit in their argument. I mean, it looks like a BlackBerry keyboard. It looks.
Hang on, Dan. Whoa, Dan. Is this the same Dan McDermott who insisted loudly that the Samsung Apple case was total hogwash?
I have no idea. I honestly don't. I think Samsung absolutely copied all Apple stuff. I just hate Apple, so,
But you love BlackBerry.
I think they have a good keyboard.
Oh, them fighting words, Dan.
Mussolini made the trains run on time. They have their strengths. But clearly, look, this be at some point. Like, remember what was the movie Coming to America, where the guy said he had the McDevitt's restaurant, and he says, "Yeah, it's two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, tomatoes, but I don't use a sesame seed bun." Right? I mean, this is a McDevitt's BlackBerry right here. I mean, it looks. I'd say, I think that all the judge said was, BlackBerry is likely, or there's a good chance that they'll win on the merits of their argument, and I think that this is, Typo to BlackBerry is Samsung to the iPhone. I would say. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it bogus?
I'm just shocked. That's all. I'm just shocked that it actually got held up. I didn't think it was. I was kind of rooting for it not to be.
I mean, Alan called me a hypocrite, but he didn't dispute my argument. Is my argument wrong?
What, that the two are similar? I think the real question is, what's the patent that's been violated here? That's the question that I have in my mind that I haven't actually seen answered anywhere. What's the patent?
Yeah, like contract law, patent law, it ends up the fine print.
Is this a design patent, which I think is somewhat bogus to begin with? Is this a patent on a keyboard attached to a mobile phone, in which case we are all so... Or is this something specific about the exact positioning of the keys on the keyboard, the shape of the keys, the response rate on the keys? If that's it, then yes, I can see that as a valid patent. If it's a patent on a mobile device with a keyboard, get real. It's a bogus patent.
Maybe I should buy it and review it. I don't know, since it's still up for sale for a few more hours, I guess.
Okay. All right, yeah, they'll be a highly priced commodity now, right? If you've got one of those cases. All right, next up. And I'm going to add a totally random topic. I want to talk at the end. We're going to talk about the Mozilla CEO thing, and I want to talk about the Costco peanut butter thing.
We've not added enough totally random topics tonight.
Glass goes to Seattle. Soto Park 5th and 6th of April. RSVP. Now I wonder which. It must have been Sheila who added this topic about the glass event.
No, not me.
I'm joking, Sheila. I'm trolling Cadeas and Alan. I see Cadeas already has his tickets.
You're good at trolling.
What'd you say?
Huh?
I got nothing on Sarik or Craig. Okay, so tell us. I pause with bated breath, poised and ready to hear this glass topic.
You know, Dan, when they visit Virginia,
I'll
I'm going to
go.
make damn sure that you show up at that.
Sure, sure. I'll do that. And I'll videotape it and monetize it. I'm still
Oh,
not
I
putting
gotta
that
find out
freaking
when they're
thing on my
going to.
face.
Oh yes, you are.
Oh, yes, you will.
No, I mean I'll try it, but I wouldn't. I'm not going to spend $1,500 to look like 7 of 9. Because I think it's
Well,
awesome technology. I just
you'd
want
be
my technology to
so.
be subtler than glass. But
So
I
you
applaud
want
the effort.
you want your watch.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is Dan McDermott, who gets the largest freaking cell phone he can find and wants it to be subtle.
He wants that little watch.
But I keep the phone in my
Dan,
pocket.
your technology is as subtle as a phablet is.
I keep the
Which
phablet
is
in my
to say-
pocket because I'm not happy to see you.
How does that big phone fit in your pocket?
You know, I get that a lot. All right, so Alan, please, before I get us banned from the interweb at tubes, tell us while I pee
Sure.
about this event.
So Glass has been doing this road show that they've taken on the road. You know, they've taken Glass to, I believe they've taken it to Austin. They've taken it to Chicago. They've taken it to Atlanta. We've had actually one of our viewers, Kevin Bryan, went to the Atlanta road show to see what it was all about, and came away favorably impressed. And now they're taking it to Atlanta. So the 5th and 6th of April at Soto Park, whatever that is, they will be there. RSVP is required to make sure they've got enough space for everybody. We've already gotten word that Oleg has signed up, and he will be letting us know what he thinks about the road show in Seattle from his perspective. And I look forward to hearing what he has to say. Because, you know, unlike some people who have been on this panel, Dan, he's not closed-minded about the awesomeness of this technology. So, I don't know, Sheila, if they showed up in Utah, would you go and see a trial of, would you go and play with glass?
Oh, you bet I would. You bet I would. Actually, I have friends who have glass. Jesse Stay, you might know of him.
Oh,
He has
yes.
glass. I might have to just ask him, can I try your glass on? Just for kicks and giggles. You know.
I think you should. I think you should. That would be neat. Make sure you post pictures and your
Oh,
experiences, because we'd love
oh.
to hear it.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm using his glass. Could I sign into my account with his glass?
No, but usually glass explorers are happy to show you around a little bit.
That's just a
Just a
little.
little.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, again, for all our viewers out there, April 5th and 6th, that is next Saturday and Sunday, I believe, in Seattle. If you're there, we'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to RSVP. So, moving on, the next story we have is what is sure to be another ratings bonanza. Sheila, do you ever use Google presentations or Google Drawings that are part of Google Drive?
No.
Okay. How about you, Cadeas?
I have not actually, never have.
Google Drawings and Google's now they've got like Google Sheet or something. Is that comparable to the Google Docs?
Presentations
Google
would be
Doc-
like
Google-
PowerPoint. Drawings would be like, I don't know what. The Microsoft. Is there a Microsoft like Corel Draw type thing?
Not
I'm
really.
obviously dating myself at this point.
It's
Yeah.
very roughly like one screen in Google presentation or in PowerPoint. But it's mostly they do have something that is what is it? Uh, I don't know. There is actually an Office application that lets you draw spreadsheets and stuff like that. Not spreadsheets. Diagrams, flowcharts. That's the word I was looking for.
Have you used it, Alan? Because I got to tell you, I watched the portions of the Microsoft Office for iPad presentation.
We're getting to that, Dan. Dan, we're getting to that in a couple of minutes.
Well, I was going to say I was impressed with the PowerPoint. Is how good are presentations on Google Drive?
They're decent. I mean, considering that PowerPoint itself is nothing, spectacularly awesome. Presentations are decent. All of the presentations I've been doing recently have been with it, and it's okay. I speak so glowingly about it. There's nothing bad about it, but there's nothing that makes you go, ooh, this is the greatest application of all time.
The reason I ask is it would be neat for me, and then I'll go to Cadesa's comment. It would be neat for me.
Can I actually finish with the damn
Oh,
story?
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, that's what Cybernaut was trying to. He wants to make sure you have good news because we haven't got to the point yet.
And thank you, Cy. It's Vizio that I was thinking about. So the announcement that came with this is really honestly nothing big, but one of the annoyances about it is that if you pasted in a picture, you couldn't do anything with that picture. So now if you put in a picture, you can do some basic editing on it, like cropping it. Ooh.
Whoa, you can't do... Yeah, I can handle that. You can't do that with the photo editing tools we have now.
So, this isn't a major thing, but, if you go back and look at the discussion forums, it's been a feature that's been requested for like 3 years. So it's nice to see them finally getting around to it.
This in Google Draw, right?
This is in what they call presentations and diagrams. Diagrams?
Okay, kind of like your PowerPoint.
Make sure let me make sure I get the right. Sorry, it is presentation and drawing, and they're both part of Google Drive.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
So, from Tim, presentations are cool. What's cool about them? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like them. I use them. I've used them every week for the past month or 3.
What'd you use? You just did a big presentation at Google. What'd you use to make that? Because it was on the...
I didn't make a presentation. Oh, almost all of the presentations I make these days, I use Google. I use Google Drive presentations.
Because you recently did one where you were talking about glass, and there was stuff on the screen behind you, and it was very nice.
Recently did one. I've done like one a week for the past 2 months. But yes, the one that I did last week for Google Glass NYC, I was using presentations. When I did last week, or the week just passed, at Augmented Reality World, New York, I wrote it on presentations, and it was displayed on a Mac. So I don't remember which Mac application it was, but I exported it to a common format to display it. But it was designed using presentations. Presentations is certainly, it's decent. It's functional. Is it awesome? Is it cool? No. But it gets the job done.
Can I ask you a question? This is Sheila, go ahead and mute your mic for me because it keeps flipping back to you when you're typing. It's okay. Here's a practical application, Alan. Tonight, when I did a brief intro about the Malaysian situation, right? It would have been neat, and I have Sony Vegas Pro, and I could have gone and gotten some Wikipedia pictures, and I've got stuff from the Malaysian TSB, etc. I have art I could have used, and I could have done like a 30-second visual thing while I was talking and put something together so that I could have shown like the map of the search area, etc. But that's a 2-hour ordeal in Sony Vegas Pro. It'd be neat if I could use some sort of consumer level product like Microsoft PowerPoint or presentations, whatever, that I could export to an MP4 and just kind of time the slides to match the script. And then I could be reading the script off the teleprompter or off my, my Nexus 7 while this thing's rolling, and it'd be a visual aid without having to go through a 2-hour ordeal to create it in a standard video editor. Do you have a suggestion for that kind of situation? Or if our viewers do, please chime in.
I'd love to know if our viewers do, but turning it in, I don't think you can turn a presentation into an MP4.
Even if I could play it, I could capture it.
Right. So you could certainly turn it into a presentation and even display, screen share the presentation, for that matter. That's certainly doable, and it's fairly easy to do. If you're even vaguely familiar with PowerPoint or its ilk, it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing fancy about it. We have this comment from Thomas Milne. I am assuming this is the local school district is pushing for their students to use Google Drive for as many of their projects as they can. I'm hearing that a lot. Google Drive for Education is an incredibly good deal for schools, and to be perfectly honest, it's more than capable for a lot of what school kids are using. It's not perfect, but it's getting better and better by the day, and it's more than adequate. I'll tell you, what's there now is actually better than the word processor I used when I was in 8th grade. So I think it's a great tool. And I have friends and their kids use Google Drive for their science lab projects. It's an invaluable resource. And I think this change that's been made this week makes it a teeny tiny bit better.
It's definitely awesome. I mean, we use it all the time. Now, I can't lay out the newspaper I'm not aware of an online tool that's practical for that. But for things like we have a control sheet where we keep track of what ads are going to run in the newspaper, that kind of thing. And everybody can, we use QuickBooks Online. So my billing person and I and the sales reps can all, check stuff. Somebody can pay a bill from an emailed invoice and it immediately goes into the accounting system. I mean, these things are fantastic. It's so much better than having, a handwritten ledger or, printing stuff out and mailing it. I mean, it's just really remarkable. But it's still, the capabilities are not as fully featured as what you get from a standalone program. Like Word or whatever Mac has cannot compete in features. Or, I mean, those are, the online tools cannot compete in the feature set with those things, but you get the ability to collaborate. And that's amazing. And to be in multi-places.
Do we really need to go through this debate again? Let's see. What do we have?
I'm looking at what I can do with OpenOffice or Word versus what I can do with Google Docs. And Google Docs does about 5% of what either of those programs do. But those programs can't be used online.
Okay, Dan. So fine. What does Word do that Google Docs does not do that you need it to do?
I don't know. I mean,
if you don't know...
No, I mean, I know that I've been frustrated before. I could tell you what InDesign does that I don't see in...
We're not comparing it to InDesign. InDesign is another creature completely, right?
It's a page markup thing.
InDesign is not Word.
No, it's not, but it's kind of a similar thing. It's just...
No, InDesign is specifically designed for layout. I mean, that's its reason to exist.
A lot of it is the speed. But really, I mean, I hear you. I hear you. Okay. I'll rephrase it. The feature set of Google Docs is probably 5 or 10% compared to what the feature set of Word is. But probably 80 to 90% of what you actually do, you can do in both, if not more.
That's fine. That's fair. And I will once again say, either identify either the 20% or the 95%, whichever number you wish to use. I'd like to know what it is that you think Drive or Docs can or cannot do.
Okay, here's an example.
Now, I have a list of things that it can't do, and I know what they are.
There's a
But
guy.
it
Uh,
bothers me when people say, "Oh, it doesn't do everything." That's fine. Tell me what it doesn't do.
there's a guy who has a bunch of. Are there macros in docs?
Yes and no.
Okay, so here's an example. A guy I talked to today, because I'm really good at macros. There's a guy who's got. He's saved all his karaoke files from his discs to his computer, but they're numbered. He didn't know to put um, Trace Atkins hyphen song title dot zip, and he just put like the disc number dot zip, right, and the track number. So, and he has a list of all the corresponding track numbers with the song and the artist.
Oh, I see
So
what you're
I
saying.
can take
So,
a macro and using that thing create a bat file that I can run, and I could do it fairly
Dan,
quickly.
Dan,
Yes,
do you ever watch this show?
occasionally.
Because we discussed that exact feature 2 weeks ago when they introduced add-ons for docs and sheets. Yes, there is we can call it a macro language. What it is, it's AppScript, and AppScript lets you access things in docs and sheets and lets you access a wide variety of other Google services through them.
Oh my God! Hang on, I'm getting a welcome to Java. I hate this crap. Thank you, Oracle, for interrupting our program. Yes, I'm sure, you asshole. Go ahead.
So we have some comments. Richard says, I'm a university student and docs meets most of my needs. I'm curious to find out what it doesn't meet, because there are things it doesn't do well or correctly, but I'm curious to know what they are. That's a sincere question. Google Docs is to Microsoft Word as Paint is to Photoshop. I'm not quite sure I'd agree with that, but I'm okay. Both have different needs and uses. What's cool is the drive ability to share. Should be a nice learning tool. I also like the magazine page turner Dan made. You want to explain your magazine page turner?
If you're talking about issue, that is something we pay for. That's not something I did. If you're talking about the Warren County Report, Frederick County Report newspaper thing, then yeah, I laid that out personally with a lot of help from graphic designers who make those beautiful ads.
And here's an excellent point from Richard. It was disappointing that they didn't integrate it into Docs. And this is actually a good point, is that they have this photo cropping feature for presentations, but they don't have it for Docs. And that makes no sense whatsoever, because you're just as likely to use it on Docs as you would for presentations. So I agree with Richard on this one. I have no idea why they didn't do that. My only guess is that Docs recently had a large number of other changes, and they may not have wanted to try to roll them both out so close to each other. Anyway, you have any thoughts on this, Cadeus?
Not much. I don't really use. I don't do presentations with the PowerPoint junk, so I'm good.
So you have any other thoughts on this ghetto software, Dan?
Do you, Dan?
Sorry, I was replying to
Sheila?
a guest. No, I'm for it. It's just like glass. I'm not saying glass sucks. I'm not saying it's not revolutionary and awesome in ways.
We're not saying you said glass sucks, but you have called this software ghetto in the past.
I'm saying that I use Docs every single day, and there was a glitch today, but that's fairly rare. I was in the bank and I was pulling it up because I had a big deposit I had to make, and I had all these checks and I'd added them up, and I couldn't add the last 5 I had to add, so I was sitting there on a paper writing stuff down. But it's awesome. But I just, and the feature set is improving dramatically. But with WordPerfect 5.1 for DOS, I could quickly say turn on a macro, and then down arrow type change file net whatever it was, or ren space this to and then home and then down arrow and then turn macro off and then tell it to do the macro 1,000 times until the end. It was real simple, and
You can't do that in Word.
I have no idea. I mean, I guess I could bust out 5.1 WordPerfect 5.1 again. I don't know.
I could do it in Emacs. You're
I'm gonna just hire some Romanian kid for $100, and he's gonna hook me up. So there we go. What's next?
Next is the follow-on for this, which you started leading into, and that's that Microsoft has now released Office for the iPad, which is, revolutionary in some ways, that they actually got around to doing this. We'll probably be discussing this a little more on our Android Week, because there is also an Android component to this story.
I wasn't aware of the second part of that. It said it makes Office for Android free of charge. What's that about?
Just what it said. They had an Office for Android previously. They've now made it free of charge, just like Office for iPad is.
I thought there was a subscription fee, like $10 a month or something.
There is a subscription fee for Office 365, but I believe the reader component of it is available free of charge, and it's an in-app upgrade if you want Office 365 through the app, or you could buy it separately and make sure Apple doesn't get their cut.
So you can't create, but maybe you can read, maybe you can edit, that kind of thing for free?
You can read. Unless you purchase the upgrade, you can't create or edit.
And the upgrade's not a one-time thing. It's a monthly, like $10 a month, right?
Something like that, yes. I don't know the pricing for Office 365 off the top of my head, though.
Is this awesome or meh, or what is this?
From what I've read, it's actually a fairly decent version that, they actually put some effort into it, and it works fairly nicely. For a while, it was one of the top-selling, the top downloaded apps on the App Store.
Cadeas could go to this better, but aren't there... The way I saw it described, and I'm not at all in the Apple ecosystem. You are partially, Alan, and Cadeas is more so. But I heard it described like if you are hardcore Microsoft, then this is fantastic, but that there are plenty of equal or better free or lower cost solutions already available on the iPad.
I haven't used this. I don't know what Charlie did with that iPad, and I just haven't looked for it. But I haven't used this yet. So
it's on eBay.
Probably. So I don't know. Me and Chris Perillo had a little conversation over this, and he just says if you just sit down and use it for 5 minutes, you will see that it's significantly better than Google Drive on iOS. So I need to find that iPad, and I'm supposed to go and give this a try and see what I think on it. Obviously, I haven't used Office. I don't really do Office type stuff, so I haven't seen Office for Android either. So I don't have an opinion. I love Google Drive. All they need is push notifications instead of the emails, and I'm totally set with Google Drive. So.
Yes, it really ticks me off that Google Drive still is so badly integrated with Google+.
Don't get me started on that.
You and me both.
Could be a dual stereo rant. I'd have to do a side-by-side shot. Any other thoughts?
No.
Okay. All right, so I swear to God I'd not heard of this company until this announcement, but Facebook just dropped 2 big ones.
We swear to God we are not shocked the least bit, except for the fact that I announced, well.
Anyway, that was our every 5-minute dig against Dan break. So Facebook has bought Oculus VR, which was a Kickstarter project that I think they were supposed to raise like 100 and something thousand. That was their goal, and they raised like in the low millions on Kickstarter, and then I guess like a year and a half later, Mark Zuckerberg courted them for a while because I think a month or two before the purchase, someone posted on Reddit, "Hey, I just saw Zuckerberg in the elevator at Oculus, and he's bought him." Apparently, very smitten with his technology, as he was with Glass. I remember when he was at an event with Sergey and his wife, and he was trying on Sergey's Google Glass and was very impressed, and they were having a nice conversation. So, why? And also your thoughts on the Kickstarter people getting all pissed off about this.
Well, first, why don't you explain what Oculus Rift is?
I know that they make virtual reality glasses, and they've sold dev kits so far. They haven't sold a consumer version.
They're
And
more like virtual reality goggles.
goggles.
What's interesting is that this company is actually down the street. I can literally ride my bike to this company. So I know the CEO very well. I see him probably weekly. So it's just really interesting how, I look at this as he started off on Kickstarter, and he gets funding obviously, and then he goes and he produces a product that is really concept. It's not even a completed product yet. Everyone that's looking at it is seeing what it can do 20 years down the road, and he continuously kept getting different investment from different types of different VCs and different things. I think the last one he got like $500 million, and then all of a sudden Facebook walks in and buys this product that still hasn't quite done anything yet. So I just find that very weird how it just continuously built up to this point where Facebook has bought something that still doesn't do anything yet.
I'm thinking we're in a bubble. I was having a conversation with a venture capitalist about this. I forget his name, but he's, I think, San Francisco VC or something like that on Twitter. And I'm thinking we're in a bubble. That these companies are, getting sold
You're
for
only
crazy
now
amounts of
coming to
money.
that conclusion?
No, I've been thinking about this for a while. I mean, the WhatsApp thing, they're one good competitor away from losing market share, and they're worth, all that money. What do you think, Alan?
Fine, catch me mid-yawn.
I get to troll you back once in a while.
I don't know. What do I think about what? I mean,
Oculus being purchased by Facebook. Why? What do you think about the Kickstarter reaction to it?
Well, let me. We have this comment from Thomas. I might as well start with. I feel bad for the people that donated money through Kickstarter, only for Facebook to come along and make all the donations pointless.
Well, we don't know that
It
yet,
didn't
and
make
don't
the
they know
donations
what a Kickstarter project is? The idea is to build a business that gets more value, right?
Right. I mean, it didn't make the donations pointless. If they hadn't donated, the company wouldn't exist.
They wouldn't have
I
a
mean,
product.
so there's a reason why it's called Kickstarter. If you're thinking that you're buying a product, you don't understand what Kickstarter really is. If you think that this is going to be a company that is going to succeed based solely on your minimal cash input into it, you don't understand how companies work. So I don't know. I certainly understand some people's opposition to it, but this is the nature of Silicon Valley these days.
Isn't that kind of the
Richard.
stated or unstated goal of all these companies, to get the call from Larry or Mark or somebody, hey, can we have lunch? Isn't that kind of like,
Well-
oh my God, I'm going to be a billionaire? And all these people
Yeah,
on
fair
Kickstarter, if they had equity with their contributions, they'd all be singing a different tune.
But Kickstarter doesn't work that way. You can't get equity.
Right, that's the point. But
Yeah.
if they had equity, they'd all be making literally 1,000 times their investment. Because the Kickstarter campaign was $2.5 million. They just sold for $2 billion. They just sold for 1,000 times the initial funding. That's not bad. Day's work.
Well, but again, remember, the initial funding wouldn't have paid for this company to go anywhere. You're the one who mentioned they got tons and tons of venture capital, including venture capital from Andreessen Horowitz. I mean, we're not talking... We're talking big name investors here.
Right, and that's all the more reason why I'm just shocked, because it does nothing. It's just not even a fully working prototype yet. So I guess it's just weird.
Yeah, well, you wear a non-fully working prototype too, I might point out.
Right, but it hasn't been sold for $3 billion to somebody else, so for nothing. I don't know. It just seems weird that you would invest in something that doesn't have any real direction, and people just keep throwing money at it.
So Cadeas, why does Google invest in a driverless car and balloons with internet capabilities and
I'm looking at it from
eyewear?
what it is, I'm looking at when you look at a product. If I'm building the product, I can continue to invest in the product because I know where I'm going. Whereas for me to say, hey, Alan, invest in this product, this is what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know. It just seems weird. I would expect them to at least have a working prototype instead of just. To me, here's the best way to say it. It's like a pipe dream that may come true. Like, it's just weird. It's weird to me. I don't know.
Well, but that's what that's what VCs do.
Yeah.
They invest in products that aren't working because they can get in cheap and they have a good chance of making big bucks.
Also, those aren't analogous. The driverless cars and the Project Loon aren't really analogous in this conversation, I don't think, because Project Loon could end up being an extension, a way to deliver ads to an emerging market one day. The driverless cars, I don't see them thinking like, oh, we're going to be able to put AdWords on the windshield. I think that's a whole separate business that could be worth $1 trillion if they can figure it out. Right? So that could be just a separate thing,
Okay, so Dan, explain to me, when they bought Android, how did that fit into their core business of advertising?
I don't know. I mean, obviously there's ads on Android, and do they get a cut? I mean,
no. I mean, they do now, but it's a pittance, and
some of this is there's a market share race in this thing. We don't really know exactly what the hell we're going to do with it, but we better get in it because the other guys are.
No, I think there's
now literally a race to give internet
what
to
Facebook is doing here,
the poorest continent
and what Google does.
They're literally racing to try to get internet to the poorest, least disposable income possessing continent in the world. Facebook and Google are neck and neck now with the balloons and the drones. I mean, there's not a whole lot of money to be made in the Sudan, flying balloons to deliver internet.
Well, and again, here, Google has the Google X projects. These are moonshot projects. These are projects that are 10 years out, that Google is sinking a lot of money into, with no hope of short-term return. These are things like the driverless cars, Project Loon, and yes, this includes Google Glass.
We say a lot of money loosely. It's not really a lot of money for them. It is for us, but all of these have very high risk of failure or becoming irrelevant or obsolete. But if a lot of these projects took off, like if Glass became, oh my God, or Loon or the driverless car thing, they have a potential to, if any one of those things exploded, they could pay for the whole Project X 1,000 times over.
Well, and you don't think the purchase of Oculus is the same way?
Exactly. That's my point. I think that this may or may not be related to being part of Facebook. I mean, Instagram is kind of on its own thing, and it's doing well. They just surpassed Twitter.
Related. Here's the thing. I think it is related to being part of Facebook. I don't think it's necessarily related to the part of Facebook, to how we see Facebook today, but I think it is related to their bigger picture mission of connecting people.
I mean, I think it's amazing technology, and I got to tell you, that animated GIF. Was it The Simpsons, Cadeas?
No.
That was. I don't know, man.
It's Futurama.
That was hilarious. They all look the same, all those cartoons now. Not like the old days when Scooby-Doo was hand-drawn, even though the background was only like 3 feet wide and you saw it loop. Anyway. So there. Go ahead, Cadeas.
So Thomas wants to know, are you going to talk about the Motorola CEO?
Yes, in fact.
Mozilla CEO.
What did I say?
Motozilla.
Motorola.
Oh God.
I'm gonna sell a CD of Kadeisisms. He's sort of the Yogi Berra of our show. I love his pronunciations. He's like super sophisticated and urban, and you got the hick thing going on sometimes. It's funny. I bet he
Okay.
listens to country music. All right,
All right.
all right. So there's Mozilla CEO drama. I barely follow this, but apparently I don't know all the details. Maybe the folks watching want to comment and fill us in. But apparently there's a new CEO of Mozilla, and it came out that he had donated to the campaign for Proposition H, and that was that a marriage thing or a rights issue? What, I don't remember.
Proposition 8.
Eight Proposition. Did I say H?
Yes.
I'm sorry. See,
We're going to have a list of Danisms.
I was still doing my Cadeas impersonation. So Proposition 8 in California, which was that was that like a defensive marriage act type thing or whatever you want to call it, like a anti equal marriage rights. I want to make sure I say it without whatever. And for the record, I think you should be able to marry whoever the hell you want. It's nobody's freaking business. It's a rights issue. But anyway, that's my opinion. But apparently he donated money to that campaign and donated money to politicians who supported it. And that pissed a lot of people at Mozilla off. And then they started, there was one prominent person who tweeted that the CEO should resign. And then, I don't know if this is true, but I saw, right before we went live, I saw a thing saying that there was a report that half of the Mozilla board had resigned over the CEO. I don't know if it was when he was selected. I don't know if it was before or after this came out or whatever. Anybody know anything more about this? I am so. Apparently, a lot of employees have been publicly stating. You don't see that a lot. I mean, I didn't see tweets from Microsofters saying, Ballmer should resign and then keep their jobs. What do you guys think?
I don't really have an opinion on this one.
I have no public opinion on this one. And my opinion on the broader issue of marriage equity is fairly well known, but I have no opinion on this one.
Okay. So that was we hope you've enjoyed our in-depth analysis of the Mozilla scandal. But please weigh in and we'll read your comments. Okay. Next, we got one here for Cadeas.
Yeah, we have this one from Cadeas.
Oh my God.
Which
I love Pam.
I think
Why isn't Pam joining
quite
us?
literally speaks for itself.
We have this other one from Thomas Milne. He says 3 board members left because they wanted to go towards mobile, and the new CEO does not feel that way.
So then, what the heck was you talking about then?
No, that's why the board members left. I think they left at the thing. This is the new thing. This has been all of the news, the tech news. God, I hope I haven't gotten these stories confused. Oh my God. Hope you've enjoyed 3 minutes of fail. Brought to you by Dan McDermott. All right, so I really don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Alan's right about that. All right, so next up, this is an interesting story.
Wait. Say that again?
No, I'm not. You can capture it and play it back and make a loop and maybe make a hip hop song out of it or something. All right, so next up is Costco Peanut Butter Gate, which is a stupid name. I just threw something in there. But basically, this is interesting. Costco, this company's going to dump. This company makes peanut butter, and one of their clients is Costco. I assume it's Kirkland Signature Series peanut butter. And this company had, I don't know if it wouldn't have been salmonella, but one of the things in some of their peanut butter. So there was a big scandal about it, right? And then it turns out that they tested the batch that they made for Costco. It was almost 1 million jars, worth $2.6 million. And it tested fine for this disease. It wasn't in there. It was from a different crop of peanuts or whatever. So there was no danger. But Costco said They don't want it. They're saying it's because there was too much peanut butter oil in the peanut butter. So that could be accurate, or maybe they're just coming up with an excuse. So the company is going bankrupt, and they said they want to, if Costco doesn't want it, can they donate it? And Costco said, no, it's our branded peanut butter. You can't donate it. And so they're literally going to go to a dump and put almost 1 million jars of peanut butter worth $2.6 million and throw them away in the ground because of this. I assume Costco's paid for it or whatever, and to protect their brand for whatever reason, they're not going to allow it to be donated. And so this was a thing. So it is interesting, though. I'm not sure. I think Costco's the bad guy. If they got a big brand and a quality thing, what if something does happen, or do they want more publicity? Kind of this sort of some Streisand effect going on here. They obviously would hope that this wouldn't have become a national story, and they may back down. But you guys have any thoughts on this? What would you do in this situation, Cadeas? You're the CEO. You're in Kirkland, Washington. You're the CEO of Costco. This company blew up in the news for people getting sick or whatever. You don't want the product. Do you want your Cadeas brand peanut butter to go to somebody else? Or do you want to make it quietly disappear, and then all of a sudden it becomes the national news story? This is a PR nightmare. What would you do?
As Costco or as the company making the peanut butter?
The peanut butter company is going to dump in the ground because they got to go bankrupt and they got to clear the inventory out to sell the building or whatever. They've asked, based on the reports I've read, they asked to be able to donate it, and Costco said no. So you're in charge of Costco. You'd probably hope that this would not become a national story, clearly. Now it is. What do? Do you allow the donation, or,
Just throw it away and chalk it up as a loss. Save face. Better that way.
But look at the PR you're going to get. They're going to put starving kids on TV. Boy, I sure wish I had some peanut butter to eat. I'm hungry. You know what I mean?
What do you think? I mean, a similar story is the one that recently hit the multimeters that shipped in. That were imported from China that looked too close to a fluke multimeter, and were stopped by border control and ordered destroyed. Did you hear about that story, Cadeas?
Did not.
I basically summarized it there. But basically, so now you have. It was several $1,000s that a company was importing of multimeters, and apparently the case on the multimeters was too close a shade of yellow to a fluke multimeter, and therefore violated Fluke's trademarks. And they were ordered destroyed by border control. So what do you think of that? There's a part 2 to this story.
You mean what would I do in that scenario, or what do I think of that?
Both. Because the show isn't long enough yet.
I don't know. I honestly don't know what I would do in that scenario.
What's weird is, stores like Big Lots, TJ Maxx exist for just this type of thing. There are plenty of places that will buy stuff and sell it cheap. Relabel.
Yeah, but in a scenario like that, if they're destroying the stuff, basically it's not supposed to be sold, right?
No, it's fine. It was salmonella. I'm looking at the USA Today article. The trustee said he had no choice after Costco refused to take shipment of the Sunland Incorporated product. He declined requests to let it be donated to food banks or repackaged or sold to brokers who provide food to institutions like prisons.
If you hand all that stuff out and it turns out that some of it or all of it does have salmonella in it, you got a whole nother issue.
That's the fear. And even if you're not legally liable, you would be in the court of public opinion judged, right?
Right, so it's better to count it up as a loss and throw it away.
And I don't know what it costs to rip the label off of 1 million jars of peanut butter. But I'm thinking it would cost less.
There's a machine that can do that, or tape right over it. But again, you're still there's still a possibility that you're giving salmonella to whoever you're giving it to.
Exactly. That's why
nightmare.
When like certain stores, like a product they found, okay, they've got some kind of food poisoning, whatever in their product, they will pull everything off the shelves and toss it. You can't, there's no proof that it's in all of them, but it's for safety measures where they just throw the whole thing away so you don't get sick.
What it says, okay, to advance this, it says that Cole, I guess is the trustee, Clark Cole, the trustee, said all parties agree there's nothing wrong with the peanut butter from a health and safety issue. But court records show that Costco said it would not agree to any disposition other than destruction. So instead of donating or selling the peanut butter, $2.6 million, the estate is paying about $60,000 to haul the 25 tons, 950,000 jars to the Curry County landfill, where Public Works Director said it will go with our regular waste and covered with dirt. It's 58 18-wheelers of peanut butter. That's a lot of peanut butter. And then to put it in perspective, though, the fear, Sunland made peanut butter under a number of different labels for retailers, Costco, Kroger, Trader Joe's, along with products under its own name, but the plant was shut down after its products were linked to 41 salmonella cases in 20 states. So I would be afraid. I can see it's a shame if it is really good, but how do you know that the 30th truck's got one that's bad? And it certainly wouldn't. It would be cost prohibitive to test all jars, right?
Yeah, that would be costly to check them all.
This is definitely a first world problem, though. In Bangladesh, they'd be chomping down, buddy. Any thoughts on peanut butter gate?
Toss it. If it's got too much oil in it, if it's got salmonella, in it, whatever, toss it. I don't want it.
Sheila Dubois, how was your Google Plus week?
My Google Plus week's not too bad. Not too bad. With my photography community, weekly photo challenge, the theme this week was fire hydrants. It's amazing the type of fire hydrants you can see from all across the world, from Philippines to the UK to Australia. It's like, oh, do we have one? Never noticed them. So it's kind of fun. You look for the hashtag WPC 2014. There you go.
Awesome. What's the hashtag again?
WPC, as in Weekly Photo Challenge 2014, as in this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, good for you. And I guess Moritz is still at the pub. We've had his profile picture up there for quite some time.
I think he fell asleep.
Perhaps. It's only about 5 a.m. there.
And we're jealous he fell asleep.
Kadeas Kalut, Newport Beach, California. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
My Google Plus week was slightly eventful, to say the least. I had a meltdown about Google Plus events, and yeah, so it's been a very talkative community this week for me, because everybody's voiced their opinions and what they think should change and whole 9 yards. So yeah.
Generally, what kind of feedback have you gotten about that? Generally positive, generally disagreeing?
Actually, every single last comment that I've gotten has been positive, and people have even added in their own little things that what they think they should be changed or whatnot. And some of it didn't even have to do with events, but people were just voicing their opinion. So it's pretty good, actually. It's pretty good.
It wasn't a meltdown; it was a rant. But a rant can be a good thing, as
Call
Chris
that a
Goodfellow
meltdown.
said. You had a very constructive, detailed, insightful, interesting, analytic.
That's the only time I ever do
observation
blogs,
about the
when
state
I
of events.
have to make a melt. I call that a meltdown. That's one of my meltdowns when I'm stepping outside myself. So.
Um, Mine was it was good. I really enjoyed tonight with Chris Goodfellow. I'm glad he took the time to come with us. It was really interesting to get his insight on why he used Google Plus and why he chose this as the venue, and what his 2 weeks has been like since he took over social media and was talked about in multiple continents. Um, so that was really interesting, and just a super nice guy. I appreciate him taking the time. Uh,
Very down to earth.
Very much so, and it was real. I knew it was going to be good when I talked to him earlier today, before the show, in the prep, and not prep, just mainly technical prep to make sure his iPad worked, because he had never done a Hangout before, but he was fantastic.
So was he on his iPad for this thing?
Yeah, he was on his iPad the whole time.
Oh my gosh, cool.
Yeah. So, and it looked fine. It sounded great. He could, if his retirement gig doesn't work out, he could be a radio guy. Um, and I'm working on a big video. This was a light week for the print because we print next week, but yeah, it's busy and I'm excited and having fun. So, Alan Furstenberg, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
He's
It was
asleep.
pretty good. I did a couple of presentations at Augmented World Expo New York on Tuesday. They were generally well received, although not completely well received. But it's fun. It's always good to get, technology. The computing world and the technology world is a massive industry. There's a whole lot of different angles to it. And augmented reality is not an angle that I've followed in great depth. So it was very interesting to see their perspective on things. And agree or disagree with it, it was enjoyable.
Awesome.
Oh, and it occurred to me we forgot to mention this in the news, but the website for Google I/O launched, and a little more information about when the registration is going to be was revealed. So April 8th through 10th, people will be able to register for I/O. So that got me excited. We're now at 88 days until I/O's keynote, I believe.
Now,
So I can't wait for that.
I've seen multiple rants from Alan Furstenberg over the last 2.5 years or so, almost 3 years. I imagine if you don't make the auction or the whatever it is, the lottery, I will see the most epic rant ever from Alan Furstenberg.
Here's the thing. I mean, the first year that I was at I/O, I got an invitation after the mad rush for tickets, so I got very lucky there. And last year's I/O was a technical mess. It was just, Google really should have been Google should have been ashamed of itself. Google Wallet demonstrated that it was not ready for prime time last year. This year, I think a lottery system is the only fair way that it could have gone. People are going to lose out. There's just no two ways about it. People are going to lose out, and I'm going to be very sad if because of that, there are people that I won't be able to reconnect with this year. But
I can always deputize you as a news
any
reporter.
other fair way to do it. I just don't.
I can deputize you. You could be the official correspondent for Warren County Report newspaper, and I can get you.
I won't object to press credentials.
I can get you a Virginia State Police press pass official, and you won't have to pay an admission fee. A pleasure as always, Mr. Furstenberg, Dr. Furstenberg. Sorry, folks. Thanks for watching so much. Thanks to our special guest tonight, the amazingly interesting and quite suave Mr. Chris Goodfellow, a Canadian living in Florida. So he was really interesting, and it was just great. So and I'll try to get him back once there's some sort of resolution to this situation. in this tragedy. When we get to a point where it'd be interesting to get some intelligent analysis, we'll get them back. We do 2 programs. This program and Our Android Week. Our Android Week is about Android, thus the name. That is Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. This program, Google Plus Week, the longest running show on Google Plus, is 8:30 p.m. Eastern Friday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. We want to thank you all very much for watching. We really do appreciate it. To all of you, from all of us, have a wonderful Google Plus Week.